figure out what to do. That's what I usually do is I give people the option right off the bat to record or not to record. And then unless I know, I assume certain people want to record, and other people usually if they're new don't know if they want to record. And good number of people for good reasons don't want to record. So,
That makes complete sense.
but I invited you into this. I heard your randos with Seabacks a while ago, and I thought it was excellent. And you've, as Chezi just said this morning, you've sort of been bar hopping, going from dojo to dojo, and and you're sort of doing that in real life too, because you're in Alaska now, and then hopefully you'll get married, and then you'll be in Wisconsin, and so you got a lot going on.
I don't remember a time in my life where I haven't had a lot going on. I think I
Oh,
probably seek that out.
oh, well, that's a good place to begin. So, uh, I know you've been randoed already to some degree, so I'll sort of try to refine it a little bit. How were your parents born into Christianity and the church, or did they find it sometime later in life?
They were both born into it. There's pastors on both sides of my family.
Oh, okay. And so you grew up non-denominational or Baptist or
Baptist to start. So my dad's from Pennsylvania, Scotch Irish,
uh,
uh, rough father. Um, my mother's from Phoenix, Arizona. Um, Very like beautiful childhood, more so.
mm,
Oh, she's Dutch. Van Loo.
oh. So you just triggered the Dutch bingo thing. And you don't even know what that is. So in the Christian Reformed Church, historically, if you would go to a new church, you would start asking um, you would start asking names and last names, and you could follow through with the last names, and could sort of locate people in the emigration. But a certain number of Dutch over the years. So what happened with the Christian Reformed Church is that the Christian Reformed Church grew from there was a first Dutch wave that went to West Michigan with Van Raalte, and then there were more Dutch that kept coming over. And an abnormally high percentage of those Dutch that came over were from the Seceders, which were a tiny little religious element in the Netherlands. And they then did not want to join with the Reformed Church of America because they spoke English and all kinds of other reasons, and they permitted lodge memberships. And the so the Christian Reformed Church sort of grew out of uh, Dutchmen who came to America and didn't want to assimilate. And so then those who tended to want to assimilate more quickly would go to the Reformed Church of America or not go to any Dutch immigrant church and just assimilate. So, um, tell me about the church you grew up in, or did you grow up in many churches?
Two. We were born like a small church, or I was born into a small church. The parents were, well, actually, three. I was born into, I guess technically my parents were attending probably the largest church in southeastern Wisconsin, probably still today. But then they moved into a smaller Baptist church. Um, I don't know, 500 people. When I was in fifth grade, at this point, I'm attending a local private Christian school. They moved from like the skirts of Milwaukee out into the suburbs. And then they found a new church that was right off the freeway. And then I spent, yeah, like middle school, high school, college years, and returned to come onto staff eventually at this formerly Baptist church that was just becoming non-denominational and then growing.
Did you, how many years did you go to Christian school?
Okay, so when I was kindergarten age, my mom homeschooled me, and I was a terror because I never stopped asking questions. And she goes, "I don't have the energy for this. I like, I'm sending you. We're gonna pay someone to deal with you." So then, first through fifth grade was Christian school. Sixth grade, we had moved, and where we had moved only seventh and eighth grade were public. So I convinced my parents, let me do homeschool one more time and then join with everybody else in seventh grade because everyone will be new. Otherwise, I'm the new kid right at like the final year of elementary, first through sixth. So we did homeschool again, but this time it was on the computer. And because I'm a wily devil, I learned my mom's keystrokes and cheated my entire way through sixth grade on the computer. So I would go to school and I would pretend to work for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Then I would keystroke the master password. I would get an A for the day. Um, and then my mom would tell all her friends how smart I am because it only takes me 3 hours and all the other kids are taking 7 hours. So if it isn't obvious already, lying has always been a problem for me. And always like I have I have had to find ways to not lie because I just like it's very hard to resist. And it's partially it's lying, partially it's like trying to figure out the puzzle, partially it's there's some manipulation in there. Um at the end of high school, I was like, I have to just be honest about everything, even the things I don't like to be honest. Otherwise, I'm just gonna become a monster. And then honesty got me in trouble more than lying did. And I went, oh well, now I don't know what to do. But now I'm kind of jumping ahead here. So then seventh grade through senior year was public school.
Now, southeastern Wisconsin is frighteningly close to northeastern Illinois and that monster called Chicago. And in that North Chicago, you have Willow Creek, which is sort of the birthplace of the uh, boomer seeker megachurch was, and you've got that intertwined with your story. And so it's really interesting that you grew up not far from those places. What was your
Well, real quick,
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I didn't grow up far from there. We did yearly pilgrimages to Willow Creek.
Yeah, I
But
suspected.
that started in college when I was in Campus Crusade for Christ, actually. So
Okay.
it had become Crew at this point, and a
Right.
small group of us from Crew would go down to Willow Creek on the weekends
Yeah.
and soak it up and be like, okay, how are they using technology here? Okay,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Hey, the library has this thing we can rent. Let's rent this thing to try and like mimic what they're doing with technology
Yeah.
for us on campus here.
Yeah.
Eventually, when I come on staff at the church in southeastern Wisconsin, that's when it's the Global Leadership Summit once a year, every year.
Yeah.
We're also simulcasting that, but a few of us get sent down to be there in person.
Yeah.
The fact that we're simulcasting it live at our church.
Yeah. So you're still watching your mama's keystrokes, even at the mega church.
I mean, yeah, I haven't been able to turn off watching the keystrokes, but I've I mean, I hope it's true that I don't lie. I try really, really hard not to lie
Yeah.
because if I tell one lie, then I tell a million lies and I can't, like, I find myself in a web of lies. Like,
Yeah.
how did I get here? It's like, well, you told one lie. Like, you told
Yeah.
one lie and that was fun. That was a thrill ride. And so then it's like chasing the adrenaline of lying and like, how long can I get away with it?
Yeah. Did you find, or I don't know if you ever found, I don't remember that part. Did you ever find Jordan Peterson? Because of course lying was a big deal with Peterson. That was one of his 12 rules.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I found Peterson after I had left church. So I had already attempted to adopt like I don't know, like a radical honesty where it's like if you ask me a question, I will be honest with you. However, I won't be honest with you about everything unless you ask me directly because it's not good for me or for you or for our relationship. I don't think if I tell you everything that's inside of me, but if you're
Yeah.
asking me like,
Yeah.
okay, then I will, you know, all cards on the table.
Yeah. Well, that's not just function. That's not just a function of lying. That's a function of combinatorial explosiveness. Because when you disclose something, there is a nexus of things from your relevance realization that are connected to that disclosure that won't necessarily map onto my nexus to that disclosure. And so you might imagine that not lying involves disclosing everything within that nexus of disclosure, even if I that's not my nexus of disclosure. So actually, your idea about that um, is, especially given the fact that we're not married, that'll get really tricky once you're married. But the nexus of disclosure there will be different. And so, I mean, I've always had a pet peeve that someone and I see it often, someone will say something they'll just they'll just they'll just be mistaken and they'll say, "Oops, I lied." And I usually want to say, "You didn't lie unless you were willfully attempting to deceive me. You just were mistaken." And that's not a lie. A mistake is a mistake. A lie is willful and with some intent that you obviously through your life now have become much more aware of that deception and that manipulation is in fact a very dangerous thing. Have you heard the telepathy tapes at all?
I listened to Joe Rogan's interview about them. I haven't, so I've heard 3 hours of the woman talking about it, but I
Yeah,
haven't.
yeah. It was very interesting in the telepathy tapes. One of the things that the autistic kids bumped into was also this business about lying and how some of these nonverbal kids and their spelling out basically made the statement that lying is a real is a very problematic element that they really have to guard against. And it's super interesting about the relationship between lying and speech, because in many ways it's a very tight relationship. It's sort of a violation of the gift of speech that can and Peterson's talked and he's had some really interesting elements on this. Who recently was I listening to about lying as well? Um, I don't know, but anyway. So you get what do you think? Now you were raised in it, but you went further than anyone, further than not anyone, but further than many do. Why do you think the big box evangelical mega church thing was why do you think you latched onto that?
Okay, so I didn't
Okay.
technically.
Okay.
I mean, well, yes and no. So I I go to college and I'm halfway through freshman year. I get into crew, and then I'm kind of more or less stumbled my way into being very involved in crew. And then through crew, somebody invites me to come to summer camp, which was Covenant denomination, so the Swedes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
for my, well, I did 3 years of college. So I dropped out after year three.
What
So I,
college did you go to?
University of Wisconsin Whitewater in the middle of a cornfield.
Okay.
Um, I'm doing summer camp. I did summer camp 4 summers, and then I'm doing crew all year long. So at this point, my in college, my entire life is like ministry. Quite, I mean, just quite like literally, like it's that's all I'm doing. Um, and after I never wanted to go to college in the first place. My senior year of high school, what I told people I was going to do was fly to Iraq to be a war journalist. And I had bought like a backpacking backpack and carried all my high school books in it. And sometimes I was barefoot. I was really wearing Tom's shoes. And my dad was like, "If you do this, I will not speak to you. I will disown you. You are going to college. You are not flying to Iraq. You're going to get killed." And my mother was sympathetic because my mother is far more chaotic. My dad is like pure order. He's a Navy man. He like growing up, he's ironing his underwear, kind of a thing. Um, and so my mother eventually convinced me like, "Your dad's serious. Like you're gonna get disowned. You need to go to college." Um, I don't know why I said that. So I'm in school, and I end up dropping out of college. By year three, I go, this is pointless. I have tried on 7 different majors. None of these make sense. Now I'm in journalism. I've been doing journalism for the longest, but the best professor I have keeps saying journalism is dead. It's all bullshit. I'm going, so why am I doing this? Why am I here? I'm out. See ya. So I go to summer camp without a plan. This is my 4th summer, or no, my 3rd summer. And then I convinced them to hire me on full time. So then I do a year at summer camp, a full season, summer to summer. Um, and in the fall and spring, I'm doing outdoor education, and I'm doing high ropes, so like trust building, and then I'm doing low ropes, which is all communication theory, but really practical. And then winter, we're doing programming, and then summer, I'm on the programming team as well. Um, at the end of summer, I've met a church planter, and I have no plans right now. I'm just kind of drifting. And the church planter says, "Hey, I like you. Come down to Rockford, Illinois. Like, I don't have any money to hire you, but I'll give you a chance to like preach. We have a preaching team. There's 3 of us, so you can learn from. We all have different styles, and I'll just throw you in front of people and see what happens." I went, "Okay, good. Like I can be thrown to the wolves." Um, and while I'm down in Rockford, Illinois, I was making, I don't know, like just little, I was using social media kind of in a fun way. I was making little videos. My parents are still at that mega church in Wisconsin, so they're plugged in there. Somebody sees what I'm doing on Facebook. I get a phone call. "We want to hire you. You're from here. You seem like maybe you're talented. We want to mentor you." And I'm loving my time in it's not emergent church, but it's not ignoring what emergent church is doing. So it's like after emergent church. Um, I mean, I still like there's days I still go, I wish I'd never left. Like, although it doesn't exist anymore. So it was good I left, because that thing was transforming.
Yeah.
Uh, and that guy is I mentioned this to you, he's Hope College out of Michigan. Um, so then he tells me, go, like, you're going to have a bigger stage there. Not that it's about chasing stages, but you're going to have more opportunities. They can pay you. He goes, "I can't pay you. I don't know if I'll ever be able to pay you.
Yeah.
You want to do this full time. Like, walk through this door."
Yeah.
So, I mean, he convinced me, because I was like, "I'm never leaving Rockford or bust."
But now you mentioned you were doing summer camp and crew. There's clearly something about ministry that hooked you.
Yeah. I mean, ministry gave me an opportunity to be creative and possibly get paid to be creative.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, also like serving God.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm self-centered enough where I always talk about myself before I talk about God, but I'm trying to fix that.
But clearly the clearly the God thing had its hooks in you deeply, because again, you're doing summer camp, you're doing, and and I'm not about to say that that's pure as the driven snow. I mean, people do ministry. Anybody who does, let's say, clinical pastoral education course, I don't know if you know what that is. That's like preparation for chaplaincy. One of the things they do in clinical pastoral education is they really go after the the neediness in people who commonly go into ministry. It's sort of like the old shtick that, all the truly crazy people go into psychology because they're trying to heal themselves. And it's often true that some of the deep narcissists go into ministry because they're trying to, well, they don't quite know what they're trying to do, but they have an inkling that their narcissism is both beloved and deadly. And so maybe they're feeding it or maybe they're killing it. They're really not quite sure.
I mean, after my senior year of high school, I knew that without God, I could and probably would become a monster.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, I
yeah,
just felt the pull to deception is so strong inside of me
yeah,
that God is the only thing stronger.
yeah,
And if I don't serve Hashem, then I will be serving something else, and that thing will use me for its own ends.
Yeah.
I won't be strong enough to, even if I want to be a moral person
Yeah.
on the will of God,
Yeah.
I could see a direction in my life and I went, I don't want that direction. Like I
Yeah.
don't like, sure, sometimes deceiving people is fun. It's fun to pull a trick, yada yada. But I really do love people, and I want to be I want to be the kind of human who can help people and do my part in the world, find a role.
Yeah. It's true that the line between minister and monster can be super thin, and the line between ministry and manipulation can be super thin. And it's often the case that really, I mean, there's no con like the religious con, and ministry in the marketplace of America so often involves delivering to people a certain emotional payload that, all the tricks of manipulation are they're just really next to in many ways, especially with a big stage and a big church. And it's not I made a quip on Twitter the other day that really offended some people when I somebody had like all of the pageantry of, now that the Pope has died, so then you're gonna have the funeral. And I mean, the just like in England, the Pope is a monarch, and just like in England, when you sort of have the changing of the king or the queen, that's when all the colors are going to come out. They're going to be hosting it in all the buildings. It's like they take the psychotechnology of awe and the architecture of authority, and they turn it up as loud as they can, because at the transition between the dead king and the new king, or the dead pope and the new pope, those transitions are dicey times, and you want to endow your new God surrogate with all of the um, authority and majesty and power that you can, in order to, in order that the institution gets through this transition. And megachurches do very similar things. Megachurches, they just don't have the centuries old cathedral or the centuries of ritual and tradition. They very much come and use the technology of the American empire that really grew in the 20th century, where we have the story and we have the movie and we have the video camera and we have the music. Um, someone in that stream also commented, because that someone's doing this thing with the sensor and the smoke's going out, and said, yeah, there's the original megachurch smoke machine right there. And so, that ticked off a bunch of people, because they just sort of want to scoff at the American megachurch and applaud the smells and bells churches. But in terms of employment of psychotechnology, both groups are doing it. They're just using the psychotechnology of different centuries. And I'm not, and Free William thought that was some false equivalence. Now, all equivalencies are, of course, selective, because relevance realization happens with respect to equivalencies as well. So the minister monster matrix in you is going to Willow, because they, of course, were sort of one of the breakthrough churches that landed the we can have a 10,000 plus congregation. And I remember visiting Willow Creek a few times, because we were sort of sent there to learn their shtick too. And I remember coming back to Living Stones, and we made some changes, but it was clear immediately that Living Stones was never going to pull this off. And to the degree that we actually went for it, it would just get super cringy. And we might as well have the dumpy, campy, homey cringiness of Living Stones on all of its authenticity, rather than the pretense of trying to be something we never could be. So, hey, lead with the Freddie and Paul show if you got it. But so you get into that, and it's interesting. Have you talked to McMo much?
Just just started to talk to him, McMo. There's like
Okay.
so many people that I want to talk to. Like
Yeah.
one of the people that I want to and haven't had a chance to is Jess P.
Yeah.
Jess is the Job guy. He's got all
Yeah.
the Job.
Yeah.
I haven't had the chance, but I'm also going like, I really want to watch all the Job videos, but that's going to take however many hours that's going to take. And I have an email from Sam Tiedemann with the best of his content that I asked for, and that's I haven't gotten through that yet. So I'm like, ooh, there's so many people. So yeah, I just started talking to McMo just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So McMo's story has some similarities to yours. He was he was on staff at a mega church and he got bounced. And he's really into Kierkegaard. I mean, the corner is as you're recognizing, there's sort of no catching up here because we will just continue to make more content than you can ever sort of catch up with. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do a deep dive into people and sort of figure out what's making them tick, but it's a it's a it's a place that just it's a maker space. The corner really is. And if you those who sort of figure it out, they start becoming makers, and then the thing continues to grow. But it's also sort of just loosely tied. There's no way you can keep up with, in many cases, at least a voluminous channel. It's really difficult to keep up within even one voluminous channel, but three or four or five, if you have, well, you've got a fair amount of your life is interesting in that you're
Unemployed.
unemployed, but you're also I've in many ways I've been sort of expecting I've been sort of waiting for people like you to continue to find us. It's sort of like Clara, the sociologist, and others who come in because you can see it easier from the inside. From the outside, it's a lot of confusion and chaos. But from the inside, you can sort of see what's going on with these people who have found each other and why they decided to become friends with each other. Because in some ways, it's sort of a weird artist community, even though it isn't exclusively artists, but it sort of has that vibe.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, like I leave Megachurch at 25 for a whole variety of reasons. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and that begins like what I guess now what I'm calling my 8 years of exile. Because then when I'm 33 years old, that's I don't know if it was 3 months ago that I stumbled into your stream, and that was a month before, a month early from that I had returned to faithfulness in Yahweh
Yeah.
and belief in the death and resurrection of Jesus, the Anointed One, and trusting in the guidance of the Spirit of God. Um, so I mean, I had spent 8 years in exile, but also like really, really not online. Because when I
Yeah.
moved to LA, I delete all my social media because I don't want anyone back home following me, kind of.
What did you
Because I
do
was
in
like,
LA?
what did I do?
Yeah.
I spent the first 2 months living out of my car and joined a homeless community. That was the first thing I did behind a Planet Fitness. Then five of us got a 2 bedroom apartment. The first job I got was at an Orthodox Jewish school as a substitute teacher. And then I also got a job at a boutique theater on the Santa Monica Pier where I was hobnobbing with important people and celebrities for hosting their films, cleaning up the popcorn after them, yada, yada.
Yeah. What did you learn in LA?
What did I learn in LA? I learned a ton from rubbing shoulders with like real rabbis in like during lunch to see Orthodox Judaism, like just be invited into it as one of two Gentiles working there was like, oh, this is wild in the best kind of way. Um, I learned that Christianity is nowhere near as straightforward as I thought it was. Um, about myself, hmm. um, I mean, at that point, I went to a few Peter Rollins events in Los Angeles
Hmm.
because I was trying to find a way back into Christianity.
Mhm.
Um, because I had begun to lose my faith in God. But well, at the same time, like I never felt like I had turned my face from God. I felt like I was pursuing truth, trying to understand what's really going on in the Bible. What do these words really mean? And if these words mean something different than what you're telling me, if the story of reality is not that a bunch of us trust in Jesus and then our souls fly away and all of this is burnt away, if there's a different story, and if that story is real and accurate to the text, then we need to put that into practice. We can't, we're lying to people. However, there's a lot, it takes a lot of money to keep lights on. And when you have a system that's built on, it's just, there's a lot of money. Like it's not easy to what's the phrase? It's not easy to like turn around a cruise ship kind of a thing. And so then I'm in LA. I'm like, well, I don't know what to do now. My whole worldview is crashing down. And I didn't hop into any other worldview, right? So I reach out to Peter Rollins. I go to a few Peter Rollins events, and he was kind of like emergent church, but not fully bought into emergent church. And then I'm listening to what's his name? The secular humanist. Is it Campolo? Campolo's
Oh,
son?
Bart Campolo.
The son?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bart Campolo's doing this secular humanism thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so maybe there is a way to experience morality or to live morally. Maybe I don't have to like just be a monster.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm also like, I had never really partied before.
Yeah.
I had been a really just faithful zealot.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, well, I don't have a reason to not party now. Like, why would I not experience these things? And what better place to go to parties than Los Angeles? This is also when I'm starting to listen to Sam Harris. So this was what, 8 years ago. So
Yeah.
16. So I'm like, okay, so Sam Harris is arguing for morality differently.
Yeah.
I never like put on any of those clothes and was like, I'm a humanist now, or I'm a atheist now, or Peter Rollins, I'm a Christian atheist now. None of them, I just wasn't sold by any of them.
Yeah.
I mean, so I was just wandering. I was just wandering through rubble and trying to like, well, and partially too, I was also trying to decide like, is life even worth living right now? Because like all of the reasons I have for continued existence are gone. So it was very much like kind of like picking suicide up and putting it on a table and like walking around the table. So like I don't think I would say that I was like I had suicidal ideation. I think that's one of the terms. But I was thinking about suicide a lot and thinking, is this a viable option for me? But I never got sucked up into that cycle of thinking. I mean, I was utterly lost. I was not completely alone because I had moved to LA with two different groups of friends. One guy from college had two buddies, and then a guy from camp came out. So there were 5 of us, all from Wisconsin and Illinois, living together. So we all had like, we were all connected to each other and connected back to the Midwest. And I would talk a little bit about this with them, but I also was like, again, I quickly realized I'm opening doors that I don't want to open in your life. Like I have to do this alone. So I'm not alone because I'm with my friends, and because of my job at the movie theater, I made friends at the movie theater. And so I quickly learned like, oh, like these shitty jobs where we're kind of wage slaves, like we could bond here. And so like it's midnight, the theater's closed down, and then all of us head off into the pier. And that wasn't partying. That was like, we're going to go have some drinks and we're going to talk about life. And after 2 or 3 drinks, shit gets really real.
Yeah.
People are like opening their stories.
Yeah.
In some sense, like you can take the kid out of being a preacher, but you can't take the preacher out of a kid.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's going on in your life? Like, how are you? Like, and it's like, how can I help? Like, is there anything that can help you? And, you know, one guy is like, nobody's ever like hugged me before. Like, come here, give me a hug. And like, then he becomes a hugger. And now like at work, he's like he's happy. And I'm like, okay, so like life is worth living, even if I don't believe in God, even if I'm not following God. There are these communities of people, and I I wonder if this is heresy or not. Like, I wonder if an ecclesia requires the God of Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob, or if an ecclesia can form around any kind of spirit. But I don't need to get theoretical. So yeah, so I found like those wage slaver jobs to be a place where slave wage jobs, to be a place where you could have friends. Um, so I was lost. I was wandering. I was forming real friendships with strangers, and we were forming communities. And like from that movie theater crew, there were like five of us that hung out away from everybody else, where we would just, one of my friends, she's doing all right, and I haven't talked to her in years. But she was in SAG-AFTRA, which
Yeah.
means she gets sent all of the Oscar discs. So then the five of us are having our little like film club where we just hang out, we just watch through all of these, and then we get to watch things we don't get to watch normally because our friend here is a very
Yeah.
actress and is on her way.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, communities within communities too.
Well, that
Or
that is in some ways the American temple that you were there in the midst of. And it's the, it's not the high priesthood of the American temple, but the Hollywood is the American logos. And LA is its holy city. And, Santa Monica, that whole area, that is the that is the Temple Mount of the Holy City. And so watching the Screen Actors Guild discs for the Oscar nominees, yeah, that's the center of the great American religion. And the religion that in many ways is all over the world. And so it makes sense that what you had learned as a youngster was transferable to that temple. And in a good way, it sounds like, because the that temple, that religious system is not terribly hospitable to human beings the higher up you go. Just didn't.
no, it's I mean it's a wild place. And yeah, I mean there are all kinds of celebrities that would come into the theater, and then I would have, I don't know, maybe I have 15 memorable interactions with celebrities,
Yeah,
and only one of them is positive.
yeah,
I think all the other ones were like weird. So somebody comes in and then gets drunk at the bar, drops the phone, and then blames the bartender for the
yeah,
drop. And we're all going like, "How are we?" And then there's a lawyer showing up. And we're like, what do you want from us? Like the camera's right there. Like nobody touched her phone.
yeah,
Somebody else, I hand popcorn to them, and they like dodge my hand, and it's like, I'm I'm sorry that I almost touched your hand. Like, how would you like this popcorn received?
yeah,
We had a rule you couldn't come into the theater more than like, I don't know, 5 minutes late, and that was for everyone. And so you've got a A-tier celebrity screaming at the ticket booth person, and then I'm the guy that's called over to like manage that situation. And there was one celebrity that came in, and I was just kind of doing corner guard duty down a hallway,
yeah,
and they were wearing a motorcycle helmet, and so I'm like watching them going like, "Who are you? I wonder who you are." And they clearly clock me, and on the way out, I look at them, and they like flip the visor up, wink, and flip it back down. And I go, "Oh, you're a real human being. Like you're having fun right now. You're playing." I go, "Okay, I'm gonna watch every movie you make because like you haven't lost yourself yet." And this is
yes,
a celebrity who, if you were to like look at the news of this person, you would know that they aren't in the news much. And
yeah,
when they are, it's always like removed a few degrees, like you can't really see into their life.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's just that's something to like note and learn from.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. So why did you leave?
because I was tired of being poor. Um, 2 months after I got there, I've been living out of my car. We the five of us get an apartment, and then my car breaks down on the side of the highway. So we like scratch the VINs off and just like keep on walking, sort of thing. So my old 1996 Toyota Camry that got me to LA, that it's in a junkyard. Another guy I lived with, his like blew up. His old beater car just like lit on fire. We were all bailing out of his vehicle. So the five of us were like losing vehicles left and right. The public transit in Los Angeles is awful. So like to get to Santa Monica, I'm living in Culver City, so I have to walk 20 minutes to a like the metro, which is above ground metro. Ride that from Culver City into Santa Monica, and then walk another 15 minutes. And I tried the bus because the bus is like technically easier, but then the bus is like, oh, we're in standstill traffic, and then the bus is emptying out as all of us like people that don't have money for a car are like just starting to sprint down the street to try to make it to work on time. Because like if I'm late to this job, they're going to fire me, even though it's impossible to get to this job on time. So we were like, this doesn't make sense for any of us. You know, the five of us had all went to all kinds of auditions. We'd done a few short films, which was super fun to like build something, do something, but none of us had like. It takes years and it's not easy. And I didn't go there. I didn't go there to be an actor. I went there because I needed to restart my life. And these groups of friends that were heading west, I was like, I'm just hitching my caravan because I can't be in Wisconsin where I'm like small town public figure anymore because I can't change here. I have to let go of all of this if I'm ever gonna become something different. So yeah, then I moved to Chicagoland, lived in friends of mine's basement in Chicagoland. One of the guys I was living with in LA, his dad is a general manager of a Hilton property. So he gets me a job as a night clerk at a Hilton in that O'Hare area. So then I'm night clerking. Then my friends who I'm living with, they go, "Hey, we're moving back home to Wisconsin." I go, "Okay, well, I'm coming with you." So then I move with them. Then I move back to my parents' basement. I don't know, I'm 28 at this point, 29 at this point. Then I'm working in the trades, and the trades was really good for me. Um, so yeah, that's why I left.
What did you do in the trades?
The first trades job I had was doing flooring. So we would spend the summer sealing floors. So we would drive all around the Midwest in these vans that barely ran, and we would stay at the worst hotels imaginable, like all of the Roach hotels. And we would go to a public school or anywhere that has a gymnasium, and we would sand the floor with these big sanders, and those things never work. And your extension cords like zap you when you touch them. And so we would sand those floors, and then we would pour paint, and be two of us. One guy would like pour the sealer. The other guy would have like a T-shaped object where you're like pulling, which is actually incredibly zen. And so there's this old man there. I mean, who could be William Branch for all I know. And he's just like the master puller, and he always perfectly pulls like the sealant, and it's always like beautiful and it's artistry. And then he's like, "Come, I've been to this town in Idaho, or not Idaho, Iowa. I've been to this town in Iowa before. I know where the good food is." And then we'd sit in this diner and have like the best burger you've ever had in your life. And he would start telling stories of Nietzsche, and you're like, "Oh, okay, so I'm back to I'm in class again." Totally, yeah. Tell me everything you know about Nietzsche.
When and why did you find Jordan Peterson?
Okay, so after that job, um, I end up getting laid off. I go, I'm still at my parents' house. I get a job shoveling snow. The snow shoveling job is attached to a larger company that does asphalt and concrete and landscaping. So I end up getting a job in the office doing like designing parking lots. And so then those parking lot designs then get put into practice and become asphalt and concrete and landscaping. Um, and then I go back to school. I had dropped out a second time that we skipped over. So I'm a double dropout. So I go back to undergrad for the third time to finally finish. Well, I'm both like putting on nice clothes for this.
You're in your 30s now.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Well, 8 years, you go to LA, that puts you at 33, so you're in your 30s now.
I'm probably about 30 years old.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
might be 29, but yeah, I'm
Okay.
right on the cusp. But I'm also like these like fine suit clothes that I've bought to like present myself to the president of this
Right.
asphalt.
Right.
I'm on site on field, just destroying them constantly.
Right.
And then COVID happens because now I've moved out and living on my own in South Milwaukee amongst friends, which is like this little band of apostates, a whole group of us who had left megachurch land and have yet to return to faith. Um, and that was the best community I ever had in my life, was breaking
Mm,
wine with this a group of apostates.
yeah.
So then COVID happens, and well, no, sorry, I end up quitting the asphalt concrete job because it's back to winter and I'm supposed to be shoveling snow all night long, but I can't finish school. So I go, you know what? I have enough money saved up. I'm going to finish school. I'm going to do it because neither of my parents finished school. So
Um,
I'm also an only child.
oh,
And my dad's from Pennsylvania. My mom's from Phoenix. So I've grown up alone in Wisconsin.
huh. That's interesting.
I go, you know what? I need to finish school for my parents because I want to be the
Yeah.
first in the family to do it. Like
Yeah.
regardless, this is important, and this is more important than this job. And I've had so many jobs at this point. I can get another job and I can climb the ladder and make something of myself in any field that I need to. Like I've figured out how to do that effectively enough to where I had confidence. Um. So then during COVID, I graduate undergrad, and now I'm graduating from University of Wisconsin Milwaukee, and now I need a job. And there's no jobs in advertising. Ever all I had been the president of Ad Club at Milwaukee, and so I had brought in a bunch of advertising people to speak to Ad Club, and so I'm like, I've got this. I don't have an internship, but I'm 30 years old. I have full connections in the advertising world here, and it's not going to be a problem. I have like soft offers. This will be easy. COVID happens, and like three-quarters of the people that I've brought into are out of work. I'm going, okay, so I'm not going to get a job. So one of my friends, this little apostate band, she's a recruiter, and she goes, "Hey, I've got a job. There's a medical device company that needs somebody to fold cardboard boxes." I go, "Sign me up. I need money. We're going to pay the bills." So I go to work in a warehouse, and my whole job is to fold cardboard boxes. And it's interesting because these cardboard boxes are designed in house because these medical devices, I think it was like MRI equipment, all of it gets shipped to China primarily. So we were doing international shipping, which is also actually quite interesting when you if you get into it. um, so the cardboard boxes were designed specifically to hold these medical devices in a very specific way. So it takes more skill to fold these cardboard boxes than any kind of cardboard box. And there's specific ways that you attach zip ties and plastic bags around the whole thing. There's a whole, I don't know, like a 30-part procedure for each folding of cardboard box. And then, but you have to have an endless line, right? It never ends. And it is at this point at this job where I put my earphones in, and that's all I do every day is earphones in, and it's 10, 12 hours, however long it is. Um, and I had been on YouTube using YouTube to find old lectures. So I'm searching like Nietzsche lectures, and it's like this black and white grainy thing. The audio's not good, but this is the actual quality because there's actually professors that put their stuff out there.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And I got lucky where at this point I had exited the algorithm. So I'm not like scrolling. I'm just using YouTube as a tool, as a video library to
Right.
find lectures and like learn.
Right.
And this is when I discovered, well, I don't know if I discovered Jordan Peterson, but this is when I got into Jordan Peterson and like listened to all of his back catalog of the
Yep.
maps of stuff and the Bible stuff. And then I'm, also going to the library to pull out like, okay, what is this neuroscience textbook that he keeps talking about?
Yeah.
What is was it affectional neuroscience, whatever it is. So yeah, I'm digging into that stuff because I'm like, I don't have a life really. I just work in a factory, so I got plenty of time to learn.
Yeah. What did that do in terms of your apostasy?
Well, by this point, I had I had pretty much exited hedonism.
Hmm.
My best friends from college. I don't know if this must have been after LA. We're having like a bonfire, campfire on one of the guys, his family, like as a owns a cherry orchard. So I have just a ton of land in the Madison region. Um, and he goes, man, it's got to be so fun to like not have to follow Jesus anymore because you do whatever you want. And I was like, well, I no, I'm still trying to like be a good human. Like I I don't want to do whatever I want. Like I still think morality is possible over here. I think it's probably the only way that I'm gonna like continue to see life as worth living. And he goes, huh. I guess I just figured that like you were gonna like go wild and have fun. Like, that fun really ain't all that fun when you after you have it. Like you're really not missing out on much.
So you weren't around for some of the people in the corner. Sort of the ground floor dynamic is a real thing because a lot of the corner pillars were very early in on me. Luke Thompson found me very early. Job, who you don't hear about much, he's out there. He found me very early. So, and a lot of these people, they were fairly early in, and so then they got in on the ground floor, and that ground floor dynamic is quite real. Um, and for a lot of people, Peterson was a. So I started doing, I made a video about Jordan Peterson partly because I wasn't having the kind of satisfactory conversations with my colleagues about him that I wanted. So I wanted some conversation partners. And I'd been doing the Freddie and Paul show for a while. I'd blogged for a while. And I thought, and I was rereading Neil Postman's Amusing Ourselves to Death. I had read that in seminary back in the 80s. And so I was rereading it and I was thinking about Peterson, I was thinking about the internet, and I was thinking there's something deeply connected between what's going on around Jordan Peterson and YouTube. So I decided to make a video, and it was a pretty crappy video. And then I didn't know enough to wear earphones. I had been reading Rod Dreher's blog and sort of noting not just the content that he was creating, but how he was sort of bouncing in the blogosphere. I was using Rod Dreher to get at other sources. And I thought, you could do this in video land. I knew nothing about YouTube. And so I made a couple videos about Jordan Peterson, and the second one sort of takes off. And then people start to find me, then people want to talk to me. And of course, the main mode that I have to talk with strangers is sort of my pastoral mode. And so I didn't realize at first it was just why, after spending 20 years in this dying little church on a very dysfunctional corner in Sacramento, California, do suddenly hundreds of people want to talk to me when before nobody wanted to talk to me. Um, Nobody wanted to talk to me. And so I just start talking to people. And then, one thing comes to another. It's like I'm doing so many conversations. People are asking me, well, what did we say in our conversation? It's like I'm talking to dozens of you people. I have no idea what I said. So then we start recording them because Zoom was better than Skype, and you could record in Zoom. So I record the conversation, and then I needed a way to get them the conversation, and then I began to recognize the patterns that were happening in the conversation. So I began suggesting to some of them that we had recorded, could I share this on the channel? And they're like, sure. And once I did that, that was like gasoline on a fire because then suddenly people began to see the connections between them and other people and what they had been suffering, whereas before they had been suffering alone, now they're at least suffering with other people. It's in some ways sort of the dynamic that you talk about after work in Santa Monica with the theater people. And after a while, I began to recognize, especially after, I began talking with Jonathan Peugeot and John Vervaeke, that, oh, a lot of these people had been depressed because of nihilism. Nihilism had sort of destroyed the underfabric of their happiness. And listening to Jordan Peterson sort of gives them this shot of agency. And those who actually took that shot and did a little something with their life saw some results and began to say, oh, I have agency. I should clean up my room. I should marry my girlfriend. I should get a girlfriend. I should do better at my job. And suddenly people's lives started improving. And for many people, that became a road back into some kind of religious belief and practice. And it was sort of all over the map. And of course, Peugeot comes along. So a bunch of people sort of get brought into orthodoxy. And so for many of those people in time, they started out sort of deconstructed and bumped to the side, and then they found their way into some kind of church. So for you folding boxes, what did and didn't Peterson do for you?
Okay, so let me try to remap then my story using the
Yep.
late put out. I guess one other note, which I think you'll just find interesting, when I had been working at that mega church, so 23 to 25 years old, I had audited seminary because the bigger church nearby had an extension campus from Trinity,
Oh yeah.
and there were a few professors who were in person, and it was just like it was night school for people in ministry,
Yep.
and these professors showed up, and it was the best seminary ever because we were all asking questions like, hey, I know, but like, yeah, I don't care about the theoretical stuff, like make this practical. Like I have a person that wants to get baptized, they were baptized as an infant, like, and whatever choice I make is going to cause ripples in my little 100-person church, and I'm not sure what the Bible is saying, and I am trying to be, I mean, sometimes accurate to the text, but accurate to the text in terms of accuracy to the text is one of the best ways we have. Well, okay, so my New Testament professor is David Seamuth, who runs NT Wright Online and is like friends with Tom. So I've already discovered NT Wright via Rob Bell because Rob Bell's even his early books in the footnotes is NT Wright, NT Wright, NT
Yep.
Wright, NT.
Yep. Yep. He was super hot in the 90s.
Yes, and that's just Michigan, so that's just across the bay from where I am, the lake, not the bay. And then my Old Testament professor is he passed, Samir Masu, and a lot of what he's doing is from John H. Walton.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
So, I mean, those are my primary, like, I don't know, theological influences in seminary, etc. So that really shaped and formed me, and all of that, I could not let go of the languages, the culture, the history, the geography. Like, I was obsessed with that even after losing faith in God. Like, I never stopped reading the Bible, but I began to approach the Bible as a literary object because when I'm, yeah, I mean, like literature is literature, film, art. I don't know. I've never been able to settle on one thing, which is why I dropped out of undergrad twice and have 7 different majors because I could never be like, you want to pen me into one place and I don't want to be penned into one place. And for whatever reason, my psychological makeup was difficult enough that I never allowed myself, or God directed me out of the pen. I mean, yeah. So I always stuck to my guns and like, I'm going to find a way to be able to be interested in everything because I think everything is connected, and this is language I would use now. I wouldn't have used this then. Turning all the whole into parts is killing us. We have to look at it as a whole and as an interconnected whole. Otherwise, I'm never going to find a way through nihilism. Um, so I'm remembering now that I had been listening to Jordan Peterson before that box job, because when I was in asphalt and I left asphalt to graduate from undergrad, I was thinking about Jordan Peterson's comment of find the heaviest object you can see and lift it. And for me, I was like, I need to graduate from college. Like, I don't even think it's not that hard of a task, but it is a heavy object. And I think it's kind of stupid and dumb to have this piece of paper, but maybe I need to not rebel against everything in front of me. And I'm going to finish college. I'm going to get the paper, and I'm going to do the right thing. So I think when I discovered Jordan Peterson, I think I already discovered agency, but I was a little bit aimless. So I think Jordan Peterson confirmed a lot of things that I was already trying and putting into practice, which came at this point is coming out of my literary reading of the Hebrew scriptures and the Greek New Testament. Not that I speak either of those languages. Someday I will learn those languages. And then Peterson's bringing a scientific backing. And I'm not obsessed with science, but I'm going, science is a really important tool. Like, today, I would say like the human is a tool belt, and I want science buckled in there. I want reason buckled in there. I want symbolism buckled in there, right? It's like Batman with the gadgets. I want to be able to deploy these things. So yeah, Peterson confirmed the direction I was headed in, taught me a lot about aim and the visual system, which was just like became directly applicable. I was like, oh, totally. The thing I aim at is the thing I become. Okay, you're nodding, so I'll double down on that. I go, okay, so what I am aiming at is very important. And then of course I'm hearing that, I'm going, aiming, archery, sin, hamartia. Oh, okay, so these things are perhaps fundamental. These things are perhaps foundational to being human. Okay, this is interesting. So I'm still engaging with the Bible, but I don't have faith in God. I'm not following Jesus. At least I'm not using that language. I'm not in a church. I'm not, secretly watching any church services. I'm just living. I am trying to do good often. I'm trying to aim at something good. And so then, yeah, I'm folding boxes, and then, they go, hey, this lady in the stockroom is out. Like, do you want the stockroom job? And I go, sure. Yeah, that will serve this company. Oh, here we go. This is what it is. So now I'm counting screws because there's all these engineers on the floor, and it's my job as the head of the stockroom. And the stockroom was in chaos. So this is, yeah. Good question, Paul. Good question, Paul. So I moved from the shipping department to the stockroom, which is kind of a department all of it on its own, because it's just me. It's one stockroom. It's not enormous, but there's a lot of parts in that stockroom. And the lady before has been there for, I don't know, her whole life, kind of. And she had just, well, it seemed to me that she had gotten very lazy and spent more time arranging her stuffed animals on the shelf than putting screws back in the right place. So now I've been given just this utter bundle of chaos, and I go, I can fix this. I can count the screws that all of the engineers need, but I can also bring order to the stockroom. When I was down in Rockville, Illinois, I tattooed the Hebrew word for order. Well, I shouldn't say order, bara, like to create, but a specific. There's more than one kind of creation, and I also tattooed tohu wabohu, wild and waste. And I mean, that in part came out of Rob Bell and N.T. Wright. And so, like, order and chaos, I wanted those on my body to remind me every day of it's also my parents. My father is like raw order, and my mother is raw chaos, but she's not. When I say chaos, I don't mean like
No,
you.
she's your mom and she's still married, and so yeah,
Yeah, but
she's
she's
not
all
chaotic evil.
no, yeah, she's chaotic good, right? So and so then I'm an only child in just a land of order and chaos, pulled between my parents.
Yeah,
It's funny how this thing goes backwards and forwards in time. Like I can't explain
yeah,
this one back here. And so like
yeah.
my dad travels for work. He's a salesman. And so he's gone during the week. So then I'm with mom and I'm learning to cook and to clean because if I don't help to do these things, well, like no one's going to do these things. And then she's knitting and she's stamping and she's sewing up my clothes. And then dad comes home and it's the weekend. And now we're going to duck hunt and turkey hunt and kill things and harvest those things. And then we bring those things back home. And then it's okay, son, here's the knife. Carve into this, remove the feathers, and then take this to your mother. And now I'm with mother inside the house. And this is how you cook this thing. And because I'm an only child and there's no girl, I was forced into a masculine role and a feminine role, which caused a lot of trouble for a while, personally, because I didn't know what to do with all of that inside of me. So then I'm in the stock room and I'm bringing order to chaos, and I'm going, this is what I'm getting chills right now. It's like, this is what it means to be alive and to be human.
Yeah.
Enter into chaos and to bring order. And the engineers are like, oh my gosh, Ethan, thank you. Like you have made my life 10 times easier than I could walk into the stock room and the A3 screws are in the A3 bin. And now there's a chart on the outside that tells me where the A3 bin is on a shelf. And I'm going, I just thought this was how a stock room is like meant to function. Like I don't, how did you guys get along without a stock room functioning like a stock room? And they go, we just figured it out. Well, human beings are adaptable. We can do all kinds of things. But when everything is in its place and then that generative, creative chaos can be applied other ways, and then you just like, people are happier and excited. And then it's like, hey, no, we have the time we used to spend in the stockroom looking for screws. We could spend that time planning a little party for Sheila because she's been here her whole life. And we're going to throw her a celebration. And this is a massive moment in Sheila's life because Sheila's retiring and she's worked 50 years at this place. And she can't wait to get home and start traveling and seeing her grandkids. And I'm going, I'm a part of that. And I'm also a part of these people in China who are having their bodies scanned for cancerous tumors. And this little screw, this little screw, like, I could rebel against this, say it's all bullshit, say it's all meaningless, say there's no meaning to life. This is the other Peterson quote that's my favorite, is the only thing more terrifying of nothing having meaning is everything having meaning. So I discovered that everything has meaning in that stock room. I also discovered that if everything has meaning, then my choices matter and my choices affect people. And it's not that I am to blame if these screws don't make it in time, which means this shipment doesn't make it in time, which means this person dies of cancer in China. But I am a part of that. Like it like to pretend like I have no part in that that's not reality. If I do my job well here, if I count these 300 screws, I don't know what's going to happen, but it might be that this delivery makes it in time. That's not for me to know. Like there are things that are beyond my knowledge, but the things I do go places outside of my knowledge, and good things might be occurring because of my willingness to align myself with good here and now, counting screws. Okay, I'm done.
That was good. That was good. That was really good. Now, you're currently traveling all over the United States because you are engaged to a traveling nurse. Where did you find her?
After the stockroom, I got a job at a brewery. So when I got hired working at the brewery, I was a server. She was a shift leader. Then I became a shift leader. And I became manager of that brewery. We were friends for a year, and I had liked her for a while. I hadn't said anything because I was like, she's finishing grad school, so she's taking life seriously. She's also kind of partying a lot, and like I really don't want to like go back into that world. So I had like already fallen in love with her, but kind of like I was telling Sam Ewing, Zeke the Zillennial, and Matt Skonkenstein this story earlier last week. Um, I'm on Tinder, and she would appear on Tinder, and I would go, I can't swipe left or right. So then I would like close out the app, and I would bring it back up, and then she would appear. Swipe once, swipe twice. She would appear again. I'm like, I can't make a choice. So I couldn't use. I couldn't even use Tinder anymore because I couldn't decide about her. She was completely ruining my Tinder time, and we're friends and we're hanging out together. But she's seeing people and I'm seeing people, and there's nothing between us besides friendship. And then she ends up reaching out to me. Little do I know, the reason she reaches out to me is because one day I'm bartending and she's serving, and she has a friend who has a gay brother, and the gay brother's hitting on me, and I'm not gay, so there's no like I'm not about to be lost to the gay brother. But she goes, "Oh, people see Ethan as desirable. I might lose him." And so then we go from being friends. She texts me, "I'm mildly in love with you." That's her opening line. And then I respond, I don't know what I respond. I think I responded, "Have you been drinking?" Uh, I was like, "Yeah, that's how I feel about you too. Like I'm also mildly in love with you." Like I think, and then it was just like, boom. Um, but that was only because we had been friends for quite a
Yeah.
while, and it, you know, that love grew out of a friendship
That's a
primarily.
that's a great story. That's a great story. That's a great story. Especially given the conversation that happened on Luke's live stream earlier today. Um, oh, how did you find Kent Dobson? Because unlike many in the corner who found me because of Jordan Peterson, you found me after I talked to Kent Dobson.
Rob Bell,
Okay.
because Rob Bell's at Mars Hill in Michigan.
Yep, yep, yep,
Then Rob steps down.
yep.
Kent becomes senior pastor there. So I'm listening to Kent's sermons, going, "Oh, these are good." But then Kent leaves
Yeah,
and Israel tours, and he's pretty sure he learned Israel tours. I think he learned from Ray Vanderlaan. I think there's a connection
yeah.
from him to Ray Vanderlaan.
Well, so Ray Vanderlaan was my, I better get this right, was my junior high Bible teacher. Yeah,
We're all connected.
yeah, yeah. So Ray Vanderlaan, so Eastern Christian in New Jersey, that's the Christian Reformed churches, that's their day school, their Christian day school. And Ray Vanderlaan came to New Jersey and taught at the junior high. And I, just going up through junior high. So he was my junior high Bible teacher. And he was just a young guy. And if you're a Christian school teacher, that's one of the nodes in the CRC network. And later on, of course, Ray Vanderlaan started doing the tours and the tapes and all of this stuff. And when I came to this church in Sacramento, actually, they had all of these binders full of the tapes from Ray Vanderlaan. I've not listened to a single one of them. I should probably find out if those things are on the internet somewhere. It'd be interesting. Yeah, and then Ray became this whole thing. But yeah, I knew him. I knew him before he was anything. He was my Bible teacher. And
That's
the one thing I remember from junior high Bible class is we had to have this little, I still have it on my shelf someplace. Um, we have this little revised standard version. It's kind of the Pew version of the Bible. I could probably find it. And then we had this little fold out thing. We were supposed to kind of keep our notes in our Bible. And I remember we had to declare in junior high if we're for the sort of like young earth creationist, theistic creation, or like there are all these things. And we had to like decide that in junior high. And I just think about my little junior high self thinking about that. And of course, I probably took sort of the center left route, which is sort of where of course I was in all of this stuff. So funny business. Tell me about the podcast. Or go ahead if you had something else on the Ray Vanderlaan thing.
Well, I just want to talk just a little bit more about Kent Dobson, because Kent
Yeah,
Dobson's I really appreciate Kent Dobson's work. His book, Been by Camel,
yeah,
must read. Just recently on his podcast, he's been releasing an audiobook that he did for his Patreons. He's now put that out, so it's like it's really well done. That's the last maybe 6 episodes of his of Ked's podcast, Hints and Guesses. But I had signed up for a honestly, it's kind of like an estuary that he was doing, where he brings in like maybe there were 10 of us. It was virtual. And I can't remember what year this is in, but this is during my 8 years of exile. And it started in the fall, and it was about going like into the unconscious kind of during the winter.
Hmm.
And then I think it was going to end with spring. And I was like, this is cool. So I'd saved up money and, got enrolled. And then after like week 2, I go, I can't do this. I had like a one-on-one Zoom call with him, and he's doing what you're doing now. And the whole time I'm like, but how do I make money? Like, how do I follow God and make money? Like, I don't understand. And he's like doing everything in his power to try and like navigate the conversation somewhere else. And all I could present to him was like, I know, but like he was talking about how every human there's 2 like rain dances a human has to do. You have to do a passion dance and you have to do like a money dance. And I was like, but you don't understand. Like, it's one dance for me. I can't separate those. I'm not capable of separating those. And for an hour, he just spent trying to, and then I ended up like dropping out. I just stopped attending because I was like, I can't, you're trying to go down and I don't know where I am, but if I go any lower than I am currently, I might kill myself. Like, I just, but I followed his work. His work's incredible, but it was a strange period of, I don't know, going what I call going to exile is like into darkness. And if you're already in darkness, sometimes you don't want to go any darker. Like there are parts of darkness you should stay out of. Um, the podcast. So the podcast was COVID. One of my little apostate band in that Milwaukee area. A good friend of mine, he's standing at my wedding this September. He goes, hey, like, so he's just classic conservative. And all of this it was just trying to make sense of the world, essentially. And not that I had made any sense of the world, but I was making different sense than the sense that he had. And he had the sense that his sense couldn't explain everything. And everyone was talking about Howard Zinn's A People's History of America. So we were like, hey, let's just read the book and like have discussions about it. And so we started doing that. We'll probably return to that eventually. When we are reunited in Wisconsin in a few months, which I can't wait to be home to see my friends again. But yeah, it was just kind of a creative endeavor to make sense and to also open the door for him more so. And I mean, not that for him, it was like, I'm on the right and everyone's talking about this stuff on the left. So I will listen to it. I will read the whole book and I will give it a fair shake. And everyone seems to be saying that Howard Zinn has some answers or has something worth knowing. And for me, I'm like, well, everybody has something worth knowing. Like, yeah, let's do it. That sounds fun. Like, I've never read Zinn. I've been thinking about Marxism. Everyone's talking about Marxism. So I'd like to think some more about it.
Now you're following, you're engaged, you're with your fiance. She's gainfully employed. I mean, the whole nursing gig. I mean, if anybody wants a vocation, nursing is a great vocation because you make good money. There's a huge demand for nurses. You can do all kinds of things with it. And the whole traveling nurse thing, I had a woman in my church that was doing that for a while, and she'd swoop in every couple of years or so and be here for a little while. And um, what does she think about what you're doing? Because I'll tell you, it is not simply a stereotype, but I have seen this so often. If for many women, not all women, I'm sure, but for many women, if the dude isn't bringing in money, the woman's jittery in the relationship. So obviously you got something else going on there.
So when we left the brewery, we'd been living together already at that point. She said, You've got a year to become a writer. I know this is your dream. I have achieved. I might cry. I'm going to cry.
That's okay. You can cry. You won't be the first.
I mean, for her, it was like, I have my dream.
Yeah.
I found the person I want to marry. We're going to have kids. We're going to get a house. Like, those things will come.
Yeah.
And I know that you don't have your dream yet.
Mm.
She believes in me.
Mm.
She thinks that I'm meant to be a writer.
Mm.
So she gave me a year, and she said that, publicly when we were with her family, extended family, and told people Ethan's going to be a writer. So we left. We spent a month in St. Louis, 3 months in St. Joseph, Missouri, 3 months in St. Paul, Minnesota, and then 3 months in Port Orchard, Washington. We're 1 month into Anchorage, Alaska. This is the last before we return home to Wisconsin. And for the first 9 months, I just started lying. She'd go to work, and I would pull my computer up, and I'd have nothing to say. So I'd start playing video games, I'd start watching TV, or I'd do all of the things that lonely men do.
Mm.
And then she would text me and say, "Hey, coming home." And I would sprint around the house and make it look like I had achieved something.
Mm.
And I broke down crying at the end of the first month. So at the end of St. Louis, I remember sitting on this couch and just, crying for an hour or 2 hours, because I was like, depression's coming back. I haven't been depressed in so long. I thought I was through depression. And to a large extent, what fended off, because I had been seasonally depressed every year. I had been, I told my friends, I think I might be bipolar because I can't shake this depression. But then in the summer, it's good. So Jordan Peterson I was also interested in that psychological makeup of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the Big Five personality test, yada, yada. And let me close this door 1 sec.
Yeah.
So, and she's like, "You gotta get out of the house, Ethan. You can't just like be at home. You need to go to the library. You need to go out in nature. We're traveling. Like, enjoy traveling. Do something." So I moved to St. Joseph, Missouri, and I do better. I start running again, but we're also kind of just drinking every weekend because there's not much to do in St. Joseph, Missouri. And then I discovered that St. Joseph, Missouri has this old Wild West history, and so that like kind of sparks. But I still can't write anything. I can't get anything done creatively. And we moved to St. Paul, Minnesota, and then at this point we're really committed to the YMCA. We're lifting 5 days a week. We're running somewhat. I still can't get anything done. I'm feeling better. We're drinking less. I'm not really playing video games less or watching TV less, but I'm like, okay, I haven't had a depressive episode in St. Paul, so we're making progress. And then we moved to Washington, and we live on the back of somebody's property in this little cabin, and out our front door is just the forest. And so every morning, it's like you get up and you throw the doors open, you're just like, and the birds are singing. And we set New Year's resolutions. This is December. We set New Year's resolutions, and we go, okay, we are only eating clean. Just like insane levels of purity laws. If it's processed and we don't know an ingredient listed, throw it out. Like, we will only dip a toe in that once a week, twice a week. Like, our cheating is something that's kind of processed. we're eating nuts, we're eating fruit, we're eating vegetables, we're eating meat. And if the meat is processed, we're going to be careful about it. We're going to try to limit chemical exposure in the household. And now this is all like political, and it was political over here on the left. Now it's political over here on the right. And so the way we're doing it, it's like everybody's angry with us if we bring it up, because you're like, and I've learned, okay, so I'm in the eye of the storm. That's probably where I want to be. If both sides are angry with me, that probably means I'm onto something here. I mean, not always, but that's one of my rules of thumb. And we have a no screen night. So we're intentionally trying to remove screens from our lives. We're being really intentional about planning hikes. We're going to go into nature here, and we're going to spend time in nature. And so we experience rest, and we find Sabbath under 1,000-year-old trees. And we both get obsessed with just looking at Mount Rainier. There's this single lone enormous mountain, not part of a range. And I keep going, that's the mountain of God. Like that is the mountain where Yahweh dwells at the top. Like he's got to be up there. We go and climb it, and we buy spikes for our boots, and we get up to the top there, and we're not the top, but pretty high up there. And you're just like, what is up here? Like, what is going on? This place is sacred. This is the high place where the gods dwell. And as part of this cleaning house, which was just New Year's resolutions, we were just trying to be healthy. That's what we were trying to do, was be healthy, capital H healthy. And we applied some science to it. We read some books, and made it really practical. And we removed stuff from the house so that, well, it's hard to be tempted if there's no bag of chips in the cabinet. So we just like, if this thing causes you temptation, cut it out. Okay, we'll throw it in the sea. Got it. Heard. And again, I'm not using biblical language at this point in December or early January. But I know these stories. These stories are in my bones, so they're always in the back of my head. And then I start feeling guilty. And I remember how I had this podcast with my friend, Jason. I go, I was so unhappy with my life, and I had a depressive episode, and I was lashing out at him. I need to call him and ask him for forgiveness. So I call him and I say, hey man, like I am sorry, and I want to ask you for forgiveness. And he goes, I forgave you like forever ago, man. Like I'm not holding this against you. I go, oh, I'm entering into forgiveness that always existed, but I was, the Lord was always here. I did not know it. And I start calling other people and asking for forgiveness. And I mean, when Grimm talks about cleaning the antenna, or however that phrase is, to hear the signal, it's like, yeah, Grimm, I think Grimm's right. I think Grimm's got it nailed with that one. Because then I'm sitting down, and my buddy Jason goes, hey, like life is chaotic right now. Someday I want to return to this podcast. I'm using AI in my finance job. Why don't you try to use some AI, because it can be a really good tool. So then I open X and I play with Grok once. And the second time I play with Grok, it's hours later, and I run out of prompts, and God's got a hold of me. And the only language I had was like, the Spirit of God has descended on me. And the thing that happened was, like, my chest felt hot. I felt like there was like electricity in my veins. And I went, what's going to happen with me and Jane? Because Jane and I don't talk about God.
Yeah.
And if I return to service, if I swear allegiance to Hashem once again, I might lose my wedding.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's an element where I kind of felt like I didn't know it. I wouldn't have phrased it those first few weeks, but looking back, I go, I kind of had to sacrifice the thing that I'd worked so hard for. I'd worked so hard to become the kind of man, and I mean that morally, but I also mean like I mean, I was just overweight forever. And like before I got that brewery job, I had started lifting in the gym and I had started running and I became the kind of man that was desirable to the eye of a woman. Um, and that was enormous work. Yeah, it's not easy to lose weight. It takes enormous discipline. And that's something that Peterson helped me double down on was just the act of like compound interest that discipline forces into your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so then to practically apply that with a budget or with weightlifting, etc. And I had become that kind of man. And I had met a woman who loves me and my family loves her and everything is going right, more or less. And I'm bad. I've kind of batted back depression yet again. So I'm winning here. And now I have this experience with God and I'm going, okay, okay. I will serve you once again. I'm in. Let's do this. Um, and I don't know what comes next, but I will listen to the Spirit of God and I will find wise people to listen to and to try and I will try to keep my life within your will. If if following Jesus is a path, and I know full well that there the path is narrow, but it's also wide enough for some gray area here. But once you get off the path, you get caught and the path moves, or you just get turned around. And you go, I swear the path was here. I can't find it again. So that means I have to do better this time at staying on the path. I have to listen better. I have to trust more. And that comes about as I empty myself and allow the Spirit to fill more of me, then it is easier to hear God. And I think being on the road and removing temptations, and I mean even just like minimalism. My closet's like I like clothes. My fiance doesn't like clothes. I like clothes way more than she does. I have a way more clothes than she does. But also she's gonna be the one to teach the kid how to throw a spiral because I can't throw a spiral. But like we're kind of minimalist right now. We don't have a lot of possessions. But when we get home, we have my entire parents' basement is full of our possessions. So what will we do then? Are we going to give these things away to people who need them? Are we actually going to are we actually going to live by faith? Are we actually going to trust God and attempt to do this thing as if it was real? Not just like a book that you read and go, oh, that was nice. Like, I'm glad I feel better now, but like actually a path that you walk on to. And I like this thing is literal. It's not just symbols up here in the sky. This is a physical endeavor. And so it's day by day. What does Jane think? You have to ask Jane. I've asked her a little bit. She doesn't want me to turn around. She wants me to keep moving this direction.
Yeah.
We've been to church 4 times now, 3 times together. We've never done that before.
Yeah. Yeah.
We started rethinking parts of our wedding.
Yeah.
We started going, hey, we don't need to hire a DJ because the DJ is just going to play radio songs. What if we sat down and listened to every song that's going to be played at the wedding and went, does this have a good meaning?
Yeah.
And they're singing about alcohol. Is it just debauchery? Or is it alcohol as a tool for some social lubrication?
Yeah.
And if it's alcohol as debauchery, what if we just didn't play that at our wedding? What if we made sure that every song that was played at our wedding was pointing towards the good?
Yeah.
It's not that hard. We like listening to music. We just listen to the playlist again and again and again and go, okay, we have 5 hours of good music.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. That's good. It's my experience that even if the woman doesn't necessarily share some of the religious presuppositions that you do, she can recognize the goodness of the progress and be supportive. I mean, it's the difference between you watching TV, playing video games, being panicky, lying about progress towards being a writer. And even if you're listening to some of your new weirdo friends on the internet, I know just from experience that the kinds of conversations that you're happening with the people that we both know now, these are producing in you some of what you need. In a sense, you're sort of building the altar, Elijah's altar on Carmel, and waiting for God to rain fire from heaven.
Yeah, I should mention both sides of her family are Catholic.
Oh, okay.
So her
Yeah.
grandparents are all very seriously Catholic.
Okay.
And then her parents would be kind of more lapsed.
Yeah.
And so she grew up within the Catholic Church and was
Yeah.
what's the word she was? She was a Eucharistic minister. So like she was involved.
Okay. Okay. So this isn't totally alien to her at all.
My Protestantism is, but so is her Catholicism to me.
Sure. But uh, Protestants are protesting Catholics in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, we went to a non-denom church for Easter the week before we had gone to Catholic Mass for Palm Sunday. And it was my first Catholic Mass, and this was her first non-denom.
Yeah.
She was like, "This is similar, but this is kind of weird." And the
Yeah.
process service went forever, and the preacher wouldn't stop. He kept going and going, and then I'm like, "Okay, finally, we're done." And then they do baptisms, and then they kept bringing people up for baptisms, and it was like, I think this Protestant service was longer than the Ruthenian Greek Catholic Church service I went to 2 weeks ago that had the swinging smoke sensor and all of that. So yeah, we're exploring denominations, and
Yeah.
it's been fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've been going for a while. Do you have any direction you want to take with me, or any question for me, or anything that you want to explore? I mean, I've gotten a better sense of, even beyond Christians. I thought your conversation with Christian was outstanding. And yeah, so, and it's been interesting watching you sort of find all the little, there are various different images of the corner. One is the flotilla. You've been sort of, taking your dinghy around to the different boats in the flotilla. Another one is the bazaar. You've been sort of coming to the different shops in the bazaar. You've been meeting some of the different people in the neighborhood. So, yeah, do you have any questions for me?
I mean, I put my money in the flotilla over the bazaar. So I'll take that stand. I like flotilla on an ocean more than I like flotilla in space, but that's a distinction for a later day. Um, yeah, so I'm curious because you just started talking about authority recently, and um, I based on my experience, I'm curious about a definition of the TLC being the TLC is the extension of Paul Vanderklay's sphere of authority, which I know you're going to immediately dislike because you don't want to be the one in charge. And I also don't think you are the one in charge. So I want to make a distinction. But I do think when I think about authority and I think about how oral authority works as opposed to written authority, I mean, when I talk to Jacob and Jacob goes, "I'm not TLC," I go, "I think you're right," because you can say, but he also says he's on the flotilla. So I'm going, okay, you want to make a distinction between what TLC is and what the flotilla is. And so I don't think it's unfair, or even, I don't mean to elevate you to be like, "Oh, Paul is in charge." I mean, Paul Vanderklay has a sphere of influence, and for better or worse, whether he wants it or not, that sphere of influence is a real thing. I also wonder if the Jacob slash Mark critique is something like, "Hey, there's a dial between order and chaos. Could you just click it one dial towards order?" And maybe maybe what Jacob wants is actually a number of dials towards order based on my conversation with him. But I wonder if it's not fair to say, hey, Paul, could you do one click and see how that goes away from chaos towards order? Um, and like here's an idea. I don't know if this is a good idea, right? This is your sphere of authority, but I wanted to pitch this idea because I went, okay, so Paul's kind of a conductor. There's a degree of every morning you make a video and it's like you're pointing at some group in the symphony. Listen to this. I went, I wonder what it would be like if like once a month, Paul did whatever the first of the month is, Paul does a stream where it's live that morning. So it's not pre-recorded. And it's like, I want to conduct the whole orchestra for this whole month.
Hmm.
And here's some things for the TLC to think about. And I'm not taking charge here, but I am intentionally playing a musical riff, and I want to see what you do with it for the next month.
Hmm.
But of course, that means that would require uh, you to agree that it is an extension of your authority.
Hmm. So you, so I have been adjacent to church planting for my entire ministry. So my first calling was to the Dominican Republic, where my title was a church developer. But and what that really meant was even by the time I got there, I wasn't even teaching. Okay, backtrack. The Christian Reformed Church came to the Dominican Republic because the Christian Reformed Church had a Spanish language radio show that was airing in the Caribbean, and some Haitians in the Dominican Republic wrote to the Back to God Hour, that was the name of the Christian Reformed radio ministry, and said, "Oh, we want to be reformed. We want you to send missionaries here, so we'll be Christian reformed." Now, anybody who's hung around evangelical ministry in Haiti or the Caribbean or many places in Latin America knows that this is a borderline scam. Scam's too hard a word. It's an exchange. These are little, tremendously poor churches that are very desperate at many levels, and what they are looking for is relationship with people with better networks, more resources, more access, that if they can get connected to these usually ministries in North America, good things will follow. Work teams will come and build buildings and bring food and bring clothing and bring money. Children will be able to go to North American universities and gain visas. And once they're in the United States, they'll be able to pull their families into the United States. There's a whole ecosystem around that little letter that comes and says, "We heard your ministry, and my goodness, Christian Reformed Church sounds awesome. Please come and teach us your ways." And of course, for a struggling little denomination in North America to get a random letter out of the blue that says, "Someone loves our doctrine." And so the Christian Reformed Church starts, having feelers. They're not completely naive. And they sort of understand that there's kind of a scam at work here, but it's not really a scam. It's a little too harsh. But we're going to begin to build relationships with this people. And the first guy that gets sent down is named Ray Brink. And he had been a missionary in Argentina for years. He had sort of seen the other side of this, where in Argentina, after the war, people were leaving Europe after the war because Europe is a mess. And Argentina is one of the places that like Nazis went and Dutch refugees went. And so these Dutchmen moved to Argentina because, hey, it's a cattle culture and Dutchmen love cattle. So, and so Ray is basically trying to help a mixture of Dutchmen and Dutch Argentines kind of build churches in Argentina. And So but it's always just rough sledding. And so he goes to the Dominican Republic, and suddenly you can very quickly draw 100 people who are going to drip on your every word. And if you want to start something, 50 people will show up. And so very quickly, this Christian Reformed church that has been not terribly effective in anything evangelistic suddenly has thousands of people who are worshiping in Christian Reformed churches in the Dominican Republic, and they're Haitians instead of, and then this whole thing gets going. And that's where I go. I was originally going to go to Brazil, but the missionary that I was going to intern with, his wife got cancer and he had to leave. But he was a very effective missionary in Brazil. He eventually went to teach at Calvin Seminary, where I went to school. But I get to the Dominican Republic, and by this point, the mission field is already fairly well underway. Missionaries are no longer teaching local church zonal classes. They're sort of making the materials for it. I get there, I get out, I learn the language in the Dominican Republic, and I get out into the hinterlands, and very quickly I realize, what the hell do I know? I'm barely passable in the language that both the Haitian immigrants and the Spanish Dominicans share. I'm barely passable in Spanish, nowhere near passable in Creole, which is what the Haitians are speaking. So already I'm only really conversant with a select group of the leadership, and I find in the zone that things are not well. The big man in the zone is an incredibly corrupt Dominican with Spanish ancestry, and there's all kinds of shenanigans going on that I just sort of become aware of. And but then I'm also watching these Haitians, how they do church. And so I'm learning from them a lot of things about church and a lot of things about doing church on like nothing. I mean, because these people have nothing. In some ways, they're there in the Dominican Republic because there's a hope of having a little more. At least they're not starving like they were in Haiti. But they don't got a lot. And they're working this relationship with me, and I'm working this relationship with them. And I'm trying my darndest not to just develop too much dependency in these people, because one of the things I learned from Ray Brink is my mentor there. And, I come in there from college, and I grew up in, urban ministry outside of New York City. I'm reading liberation theology at college and seminary, and, I'm over on the left in terms of all this stuff. But my parents were, deeply committed Christians who did really devoted missionary urban work in North America. And I'm learning a lot in the Dominican Republic, mostly about how I don't know bupkis. And I'm learning a lot about what the gospel can do in the lives of poor people that, basically what the Dominican Republic does to me is completely destroys this pretense of what we would later see with wokeism, where, well, if we just jigger the politics, then, a utopia is going to break out among these starving Haitians in the Dominican Republic. And it's like, give me a break. I don't believe anything about your Marxism. I really don't. Because, and these people don't either, because as much as they would love to somehow get one of the most popular songs in the DR at that point was Visa para Sueño, which was, get a visa to the United States to live the dream. And you come from the United States, and it's like, yeah, I can understand if you're starving down here, how that so really looks like a dream. But yeah, there's plenty of nightmares up there too. And so I gained some intuitions about church planting, and then I come to Sacramento, and I come, and we're just starting a wave of church planting, very much sort of in the Willow Creek area. You can find my conversation with Kevin Adams on my channel. Kevin Adams is a rare breed of minister in the Christian Reformed Church, because he was actually successful in planting a Christian Reformed church where where there were no other Christian Reformed churches. Another friend of mine, David Snapper, did this big in-depth study of Christian Reformed church planting, and what he discovered was that they almost all fail unless they're planted within an existing population of like 2,000 Christian Reformed people, and then they're just sort of they get enough Christian Reformed people over here, and then they grab a few borderline people over there, and then they kind of. But Kevin Adams, who used to mow Bill Hybels' mother's lawn in Kalamazoo, Michigan, actually manages to plant not a mega church. It's never hit 1,000, but actually managed to plant a multi-staff evangelical church that was reaching out to unchurched people in Rockland, Roseville, Lincoln, California, a suburb of Sacramento. And I get here. Kevin had been a few years ahead of me in seminary, and I get here, and Kevin, I get here, and I'm just in from the Dominican Republic, and with this little church, and again, not knowing anything about what I'm doing. And I say I have lunch with Kevin, and Kevin's like, "Why don't we plant churches?" So why not? So then, so then we continue to recruit like interns and residents. We bring in young men, just like sort of you talked about. But most of these young men had seminary degrees and a little bit more, and we sort of handpick them because we don't want anybody we don't like. So we sort of have a profile that we work on, and we start planting churches. And some of the things that I learn in all of this chaos is that none of us are smart enough to know enough about what we're doing to be effective in the modernistic, mechanistic framework that the new atheists like to pretend they were. And even though there were definitely some formulas. I have more books than anyone would care to count from that church planting moment in evangelicalism. All these business books, all these church planter books. And then of course I was reading all the emergent church books. And I mean, I'm just reading all of this stuff, and there's Willow Creek and the formulas and the seven steps, and Rick Warren's running the bases. And so we started out sort of with the seeker ethos, and then we sort of moved to the cell church model. That was like our next big church plant was like the cell church model. And uh, the church went fine, but the cell church thing, it just didn't really go. And we just worked model after model after model, and we went to the conferences and we went to all of that. And it was like, you know, I'm not saying that there's nothing in finding a really dynamic preacher and finding a really sharp, charismatic musician, and tuning that radio dial right to where this demographic group is and bringing them in and yada yada yada. I'm not saying there's nothing to any of that, because actually you mentioned the Covenant Church here in Sacramento. This region has been a Covenant Church success story in planting megachurches. Granite Bay, First Covenant. I mean, and what they did was they had success here, so they just kept working their success, because once you have the mega and once people sort of catch in with, oh, this is exactly how to do it, then they go to another part of the city and they sort of do that. And so Sacramento has sort of been covered by the Covenant mega churches in this area. And a guy did an internship with me and then planted a daughter church with us in the Midtown area, which was sort of the young, hip, cool space in town. And then Bayside plants one of their satellites right next to his church, and it's just like this giant sucking sound, because they had the money and they had, all the stuff. And so what I learned from that is none of us are in any way smart enough to not only sort of often achieve our goals, but even to sort of know what a good goal is. You can kind of smell it, and I think in your story, I loved my favorite part of this conversation was first of all, when you told how your fiance gave you a year to be a writer. I mean, boy, I think there's a lot of guys out there that would give their right arm to find a woman who would do that for you. I mean, it's just like, and if I were her father, I'd be like, hmm. I know the odds on that one. So she loves you, man. She believes in you.
Her father is a writer who, uh, well, let's just say someday I'm going to get him on Substack.
All right. All right. So, um, so I make a video. I start making videos just because I got nobody to talk to about what's going on. And I'm just trying to figure out Jordan Peterson. What's going on with him? And about a decade before that, I was just trying to figure out Tim Keller. And so I was blogging about that. I was writing about that. But in my clergy circles, if I would sort of engage young, restless, and reformed stuff, there were clergy in the Christian Reformed Church that were close enough to this that I could, engage with them. But Jordan Peterson, I knew some ministers were watching him and listening to him. But I remember one minister, a colleague of mine actually in my classes said, yeah, I started finding myself listening to hours of Jordan Peterson. And then I realized I was listening to more Jordan Peterson than I was reading the Bible. So I stopped listening to Jordan Peterson. And I thought, that's kind of funny. Um, and so I start making these videos, and very quickly, and this still is the case, I make videos for me. I don't make videos for the algorithm because there's often I'll make a video and it's like, this is stupid if I was going to be a big YouTuber. And the Freddie and Paul show would be the first thing cut if I would decided I wanted to grow my channel because I know very well the Freddie and Paul show tanks me with the algorithm because it's the Freddie and Paul show. Um, but I make the videos that I make for me because I just need someone to talk to. I don't even need someone to talk to. I just need the hope that someone out there will listen as I just try to get my head around all the craziness in the world. And then, of course, the internet started talking back at me in the form of the randos. And very quickly, in it was in one of the Toy Stories when Buzz Lightyear went into the little the little claw machine, and there's all these little, and to a certain degree, people were like, "You're our leader." And it's like, maybe in some way, because I knew what they wanted from me was a program. And so, Christian Reformed people like Phlebas and Reformed people like Matt C said, initially he was super frustrated with me because it's like, this will be like the Reformed Jordan Peterson to, we're going to re-energize the young, restless, and Reformed movement. And it's like, nah, not going to do that. And other people were very frustrated with me, not just Jacob and Mark, because they really wanted me to lay out a program. And the one who really leaned in on me was Rod Hare, and that's where the word estuary came from. But John Van Donk and I were sort of, we were doing the meetup thing because to the degree that I had any kind of program, it was like, well, why don't you sort of watch what I'm doing? And if you can learn anything from it that seems to fit in with what you'd like to do for your own sake, don't do it because you think it's going to be successful in that it's going to gain a large following and earn a lot of money. That's that's not no metric, but that's a different metric. Because what I'd always tell people was do something that you would do even if it's not successful. Well, what do you mean not successful? What I mean by that is you're not going to make money from it. You're not going to gain fame from it. You're not going to gain a big following or get big algorithm. Just do what you think you should do, what you love to do and what you think you should do, whether or not it's successful in those terms. And the reason for that is if you have enough motivation coming from someplace else, chances are good that you're going to keep doing it. And also, you might get this other thing. Because the truth is, you're too stupid to know what to do. Because all of us are too stupid to know what to do. And what I had seen from church planting, from whole varieties of success, is that for the most part, all of the success advice that is given out there, most of it is sort of a trick of sampling. Because such and such, I saw this with church planters, such and such a person became a successful church planter. And they're like, I'm a success. And people would be like, tell us how you were successful. And it's like all this post hoc reasoning. Well, I did this, 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 and this. So if you do these things, you'll be successful too. And what I watched in church planting was thousands of people did exactly what, because in the evangelical world, they dialed this shit in so many ways, and they wrote books about it, and they did this, and they did all of this stuff. And I watched this, I'm like, this is total bullshit. I don't know why Bill Hybels enjoyed the success he did. I'll hearken it. I'll give credit to the Holy Spirit. And I'm not saying Bill Hybels doesn't have wisdom to share. I've learned from Bill Hybels, but the formula, count me dubious, because even in the success that I watched people enjoy, because hey, the Covenant Church, they could plant that Bayside of Midtown right next to poor little Sacramento City Life, which now is no more. They could plant that right next door and suck in 3 or 4 families within a month. I get it. There was success in Bayside of whatever in Sacramento, but the truth is that Bayside isn't like that in every city. And not every Bayside of Sacramento succeeds. I mean, I see this all the time in YouTube now. Someone will come to me and say, I want to make money on YouTube. Oh, do you? Yeah, you can make money on YouTube. And so I've noticed that such and such a kind of channel is really huge. And it's like, but you don't see the 50,000 other people that tried to do exactly that and didn't fail, because all the algo shows you is the successful channel. And so it's this enormous bias that's going on. So what I decided was that I was going to do what I liked to do and what I knew was good. And even though people have been wanting me to, it was before COVID that, a group, especially from the Chicago area, were like, hey, we've got some traction going here. Like, let's well, what would you like? What do you think we should do? I'd ask them, because they're, and well, it's sort of like the Daily Wire. It's like, oh, that's what you'd like to do. You'd like to be a Jordan Peterson-esque Christian-ish, because we're gonna have a lot of, so you'd like to do a Daily Wire thing, and we're gonna have videos behind a paywall. And part of me knew that we had nowhere near the even the analytics to do that, because I have an idea of the analytics of my channel. But I also knew that no, I didn't want to do it, and I sure as hell wasn't going to run it. And most of these ideas that people had meant I had to kill off these people in this church. These people in this church have been with me through thick and thin for 28 years. And because there's a few thousand people on the internet that want to hear more of me, when I'm already putting out more videos than anyone, necessarily could have time to listen to, that I'm going to tell this, couple of dozen people here, oh, I've hit it big now. See y'all. I'm going to go be internet celebrity. I couldn't live with myself if I did that, because I love these people and they love me. And so what I do that, and somehow if it benefits them, and it has benefited them, I say praise God. But after I retire or Livingstone's dies, things might change. I might get more programmatic, because I've got like 6 years until the pension kicks in. So, and I've got a wife, and she's making more money than I am now. And I think if my salary drops, we're going to have that dynamic where the woman's going to be like, just why do we have you here anyway? And I'm sorry, all the feminists out there that's like equality, equality, equality. It's total. I have seen it so many times when the dudes, when the dude's income gets, and that's happening a lot now with guys in their 50s and 60s. It's no longer the case where you just sort of keep going until you get the gold watch and the fat pension. Those days are gone. I saw a bunch of people in this area who, when I was in my 30s and 40s, I was looking at their career. They were making a lot more money from me in the tech sector, and it was looking like, what kind of idiot was Vanderclay when he could have done math and science and engineering to go into ministry and, be scraping together all this stuff. And then they all sort of hit their mid 50s and they all got dumped by their corporations. I mean, big tech corporations. And now suddenly they're in their mid 50s and they're unhireable. And it's like, hey, you can keep doing ministry after you get gray hair. You can kind of work that. But so, so what I've done has always been sort of like I don't want to do anything that, at least at this point still, people can't take with them. And that was one of the rules I learned from Ray Brink with the Haitians. He said, you know what? The people that we're working with, this 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 whole blame the immigrant thing, that is a tried and true method. And the Dominicans, they were really good at it because anytime that little government was getting in hot water for whatever corruption and mismanagement they were doing, the one reliable thing they could say was, it's the Haitians' fault. And then suddenly you'd have a whole community. The military would roll up with this old bus, and they'd put everyone they could grab on that bus, and they would drive them to the Haitian border, and they would dump them there. And and that would, hey, we're sending the Haitians back until, of course, it was like, well, who's really going to pick the coffee and cut the sugar cane and build the buildings here and be our maids and do all of that stuff that the Haitians always do. So it's a big cause celeb, and then the Haitians always come back because the Dominicans wanted them there. So, but in terms of ministry, that's part of in our ministry there, it was like we're going to give these people what the army can't take away, because whether the army takes away all their property, ships them back to Haiti, we're going to give them stuff that's going to go with them that this world can't take away. And that's what we did. And so even in the TLC, I know in some ways YouTube can be like the Dominican Republic, and YouTube can decide that, well, we don't like you. We're going to demonetize, or we're going to take away your channel, and we're going to do all this to you. So I don't want to give anybody anything that can't stay with them, beyond the free loading on YouTube like we're doing now. So and then everything that has sort of grown, it's been one I personally have really loved how this thing has grown, in that there's all these little channels, and they're all different. And Mark and Jacob can say that I'm fired, and Mark can do the trolling that Mark does, and there's a few other critters out there. I mean, they can do all that, but I want Jacob's channel to succeed. I want Mark's channel to succeed. I don't care if someone wants to say, horrible things about me or my theological tradition or something like that. You go ahead and say it. I'm not bothered by that. I want to see, what do I want to see? I want to see friendships develop. I want to see people find a space where they can say what they need to say and explore what they need to explore and do what they need to do in order to not be alone in this world. And I want to have a space where you, as you're trying to get your head around, what would it be like to be a writer? Well, maybe, I think what we're doing is much more fun than a video game. And I think it's much more profitable than a video game. And Grim Grizz, that's his shtick there. I mean, he sees himself as a cautionary tale, and but if you're if you're going to Grimm's live stream every day, you're kind of going to a video game because you got your magic missiles and you got your little corn ears. And I mean, and so then you've got Grail Country and you've got Transfigured and you've got, I mean, there's some even old, like the Meaning Code, Karen Wong. And then when we get together at these conferences, it's like, now we're sort of taking things to another level. And, same with Estuary. I, so I've seen my share of fast and big. And again, if fast and big comes to you, God bless you. Um, Run with it. I don't have a problem with that. But fast and big does not come to most people. It just doesn't. After a while, the guy who came into town and started his church plant and within 2 years had 1,000 in worship. First of all, the majority of those people had, like, if you listen to, so often if you listen to Bill Hybels tell his little sales pitch, what often doesn't get remembered is that he starts Willow Creek having been a youth pastor of a youth ministry with over 700 people participating. And it's like, save the bullshit here, okay? I mean, save the bullshit. Because what happens is you have these rags to riches church planter story where some poor schmuck who maybe doesn't have any game at all comes into some little town and gathers around him 50 to 75 people and pours his life into these people and pours his heart into these people. And to me, that's a real church because they don't know much, but doggone it, they are doing their best to try and honor God and to love each other and to evangelize and to care for the poor and to do all that stuff. And I think the true irony of that whole church planting movement is that, yeah, there were a handful of mega churches, and I don't have anything against mega churches. I think James Wellman is right in his study about it, where he said those mega churches are actually some pretty cool things. A lot of them can really do a lot of good in a lot of places, and praise God for those mega churches. But the secret is the thousands upon thousands and upon thousands of churches of less than 100 people that are doing the thing and living the life and preaching shitty sermons and having lousy music but doggone it, that's on somebody's corner and their relative goes to it. And you know what? God is doing work through those small places. And so if this corner is something more akin to a network of 75 member churches than it is to megalopolis channel of 4 million subs and, really cool, charismatic celebrity who's blah, 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 with a staff of 50 I'll take the network of churches of less than 100 people any day of the week. Because I think, Sunday, my son Jared, now it's my turn to cry. Sunday, my son Jared gets ordained as a deacon. And I'm not going to say the backstory of all that, but so in the Christian Reformed liturgy, when you ordain someone, you have anybody who served as sort of Christian Reformed Church apostolic succession. You have anybody who's been a deacon, an elder, or a minister in the Christian Reformed Church, they can come up and lay their hands on them during the ceremony. Well, one couple, it's just living stones that, if you give any kind of direction, it's not really going to be clear. But we had on stage 3 of the people that just joined the church, at the beginning of the month. 2 of them who were baptized, both coming in through the Freddie and Paul show, and one who had been here for a little while. And we had me, and we had Rick and Dr. James in the booth running the live stream. We only had one person left sitting there who wasn't up on front laying hands, because it's like, when Rick Warren says every member a minister, That should have living stones on it because there's like things are so skinny here. We got nobody sitting on the bench anymore. I mean, it's like all hands on deck every week because if we lose, you look around the church and it's like, boy, if we lose that piece, I don't know if we can go on. And then the piece drops out. It's like, I guess we can go on because we're still doing it. And for me, I know that for a lot of Americans, they look at that and they're like, that's not what I want. I get it. Nobody wants this. Yet, at the same time, God is in this place. And one of the things that you learn in ministry is that if you're a recipient of ministry, you might be growing a little. You're probably absorbing some things. That's okay. But when you really learn ministry and learn theology and learn all of the stuff, it's when you doggone have to do it. Then suddenly, it's like you have with that seminary class you're talking about. You get a bunch of guys who, that's what church planting does. It takes some young guy that seems to have a little bit of aptitude and they'll work for free. It's like, yeah, throw them in. And then suddenly they're all thrown in the deep end. It's like a theology class? Yes, because stuff's getting tossed at me all the time and I have no idea what to do. Whereas if you're giving theology classes to a bunch of, kids who have only known college, they're just sitting there like this, it's just more education. But yeah, you throw it at a bunch of guys who are working in these tiny little churches and every week they're just out there trying to do their darndest because they know that if that little church folds, then this person in the wobbly marriage and that person's whose spouse has never darkened the door and this single mother over there and that kid over there that went to church because doggone it, they got nothing in their life. All of those people are not going to have an us just to be together with and just pray that God does something and have a little glimmer of light that maybe, just maybe, the universe isn't a nihilistic hellscape. And you're gonna have me kill that for internet stardom? Forget about it. I'm not gonna take that exchange. So to me, the corner and so if someone wants to say I'm gonna go hitch my wagon to some celebrity that, well, you go right ahead. And I don't have a problem with that. Go follow whoever the heck you want. But as for me, this morning I had 3 or 4 videos. It's like I should watch this, I should watch that. Oh, Luke is streaming. I'm watching Luke. Jordan Peterson can wait. Ross Douthat can wait. These other things can wait. I'm watching Luke because Luke's my friend. Jess is on with him. Ah, you know, Almond Tree is on with him. Oh, this is and we're going to have a conversation and we're going to be together. So the rest of the internet can wait. I've got my friends to attend to. And to me, that is what I love. And so, yeah, I know people want to hitch their ride to a going concern. So I'd say there's lots of going concerns on the internet that want to be exactly what you want to be. You try and hitch your wagon to those people, and what you'll probably get is you're going to be a nobody, like in Hollywood, in a status hierarchy, and you're going to be around a bunch of dilettantes that that are just going to be in it for some big ladder game that goes up a wall that goes nowhere. And it's like, no, go for it. The whole world is chasing after that dream. You can go right along and get in line with them. Me, no thank you. I will watch Luke and deal with all of the craziness. That's my option. So that's why I frustrate people.
So I found a blog from 2011, and it talks about classis. Have you read that in a while? Your writings from 2011?
No, but I can imagine what I was writing about. Go ahead
Can
and
I
tell me. What did
can I
you
read
find?
it? Well, I only if it's okay, because
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
um okay, I think this is one of the first posts. It says like number 3, classis is the best level of the church to pursue sustained church planting and renewal. If a classis manages to create within itself the kind of face-to-face, trusted leadership community through which partnerships can be developed and maintained, then the classis will have the kind of infrastructure needed to launch new churches and new ministries with ongoing reliable support.
Yep.
And in another early post, you wrote, J.I. Packer wrote about C.S. Lewis, and Packer said this. I think like C.S. Lewis wanted to make ordinary people think about historic Christianity and to see and feel the strength and attraction of the case for it was Lewis's goal throughout. All through his writings runs the sense that moderns have ceased to think about life and reality in a serious way and have settled instead for mindless drift with the crowd or blind trust in technology or the Athenian frivolity of always chasing new ideas or the nihilism of knee-jerk negativism toward everything in the past. The Christian spokesman's first task, as Lewis saw it, is to put all this into reverse and get folk thinking again. And then you say, I'd like to do what I can to get us all thinking about classis. Networks and partnerships have always been the way the church has grown in numbers and influence. Classis is a vital tool in strengthening the fabric of this vital community of Christ for which all creation will be remade. What that means is that I cannot do this alone. I want to start conversations that get us thinking, trying new things, revisiting old things, praying hard, and learning to love each other. Post comments, positive or negative. Tweet posts that you find helpful or post them on your Facebook page. It is my experience that there are few barriers to access your classis, whether you are a pastor or a layperson. Listen to the admonitions of Miss Frizzle from the Magic School Bus. Take chances, make mistakes, get messy, and then come back and tell us about it.
Yep.
I read that. I thought, I don't think this is the classis Paul was ever expecting that the Spirit of God would build through him. But I think Paul built the classis.
Yeah. And you know what the word classis means, don't you?
I have no idea. I never got
It
that
means
far.
flotilla.
No, it does not.
It does. Classis is the Dutch word for a flotilla.
That is what do they call it? Synchronicity, I think.
Yeah. Well, and so at that point in 2011, so Kevin Adams and we start talking about church planting, and then what we start doing is we gather young leaders. And we were younger, but leaders younger than us, the next generation down. And then we started what we called the Sacramento Cluster. And that's basically how we attracted leaders, because in the denomination, young leaders who were paying attention saw that they could plant church. There was money to plant church in a lot of places, but they realized very quickly if we went to Sacramento, we could plant churches with Paul and Kevin. And we would sit around with each other. And so much of those cluster meetings in Sacramento were, you know, they weren't bitch sessions, but I think you having been involved in church planting know exactly the kinds of things, and where everybody'd be like, like the cell guys. It was so funny with the cell guys, because the cell guys came in and they're like, one of the things they said to Kevin and I was, I don't know if we want to plant a church. What we want to do is start a movement. And Kevin Adams just looks at him and says, does your movement have a budget? And so then what's that?
Church planting has money up front. Like, you can't pretend about money with church planting. Like, that's always a part of the conversation, because you can get nothing done without a pile of cash. Like, you have to have, what's the pile? What can we get done?
Yep. And then these guys come in and they're doing the cell groups. And so they're now the idea with the cell churches, of course, you do these life on life groups of 10 to 15 people in the home, and then you've got a leader and then an assistant leader, and then you start another one, start another one. And the idea is that these groups grow, and maybe every now and then you have this celebration service. Well, they're growing these groups, and and you know the and they're coming to these meetings. They're like, our people are getting really frustrated with us. Well, why? Because they're like, well, when is real church going to start? We sort of understood, and they're like, no, real church is what we're doing here, and the people are like, no, real church is like what we do, and so eventually they were a church with a one main every week Sunday service, and they had a very strong small group ministry, but it's and that's again why I say no. So then the Sacramento cluster was we're gonna keep encouraging each other. We're gonna keep meeting together. We're gonna keep sharing notes. We're gonna keep sharing wisdom. We're gonna keep learning how this goes. Um that went. We had our own leadership training program. I mean, and but that too sort of broke down. We still have it, but it broke down in a way because we were also, and didn't recognize it, we were also riding the far larger wave of church planting. And at that point, the denomination had some cash it had to burn through, and my classes had extra money it needed to burn through. And none of the churches, the areas of classes that had established churches, they're like, we're really excited about church planting as long as nobody plants a church anywhere near us to steal our members. So none of those churches were in Sacramento. And actually, when Kevin Adams' church was planted in Sacramento, my church before I got here, because he came here in 91, I didn't come here till 97. My church went to classes and tried to get his church plant stopped, because it's like this tiny little church in Sacramento is like, no, that church 45 miles away threatens us. It's like, you sons of bitches. You have no kingdom mind. You have all that. So anyway, so no, that's right. I am the same person that wrote that. And I think in many ways, I was formed by my father in New Jersey, and I was formed by my time in the Dominican Republic. I was formed by the church planting and development that we did here in Sacramento. And so when the internet thing happened, I am who I am, and I did what I did. And so I wasn't bothered when Jacob tried to fire me for a job I never applied to. It didn't bother me a bit. And I appreciate that people want, and I can see the value of a certain leadership role. And I'm not saying that won't come or will never come. But again, most of what I want for people, what I saw happening in this morning's live stream with Luke, I see that and I think I had a hand in bringing that about. And so I think I'm happy. And I know only 20 or 30 people watched it. I get it. That video will only, if unless I maybe like push it up the algorithm a little bit, that video only have 100 or 50 or 200 views or something. I get it. And a lot of people, I go on, like when I was in Europe, one person said to me, he said, yeah, there's all this insider stuff. If I only watch like one of your videos every month or two, that's a little off-putting because it kind of makes me think that I'm not really in the inner ring. He didn't say it quite that way, but I thought, yeah, I get that. And so I got to be sensitive to that, and I appreciate that. And part of my role in the corner is to try to help lift all boats, and I get that too. And but at the same time, I don't want to most of how people grow big on YouTube or in the internet won't lift all boats in the way I want them lifted. So, Jonathan Peugeot and John Vervaeke clearly have gotten lift from Jordan Peterson. I mean, they're personal friends of his. He highlights them, he promotes them, and a lot of what people were hoping was that Jonathan Peugeot started the Symbolic World, John Vervaeke started the Vervaeke Foundation. Part of what people hoped is that I would do an analogous thing, but I don't have the same kind of program that Jonathan and John have. And in fact, a couple of my last conversations with them, John and Jonathan both said, I'm not looking to start a community. And I thought, I am. That's what I am doing. And I'm not looking to start an institute.
Well, now I'm thinking maybe this isn't a public conversation. Um, do whatever you want with this, but I hope it doesn't come across that I'm like trying to like open up old wounds, because that's not like I
Don't worry about it.
when I talk to you, I only feel love towards Jacob. And when I
Yeah.
talk to Jacob, I only feel love towards you. And
Yeah.
when Jacob says, Ethan, do you know how hard it is to find someone who is a leader but doesn't want to lead? That is the kind of human that we need to lead something. I go, Jacob's right about that. But when I listen to you, I go, everything you've said, I think you're right about as well. I think both of those things are right. And that's why, again, I am the least deserving person to make any kind of comment, because but regardless, I also just don't care. So be it. That's what I'm like, one click, not an institute, not anything. One click away from chaos, one click towards order. And the idea that I pitched, I'm not saying it's a good idea. It's an idea of once a month, Paul, for you to record something live, but it's not a live stream. Not There's no chat there, but just like this wasn't recorded the day before. This is from this day, this morning, either the first of the month or the end of a month, some kind of monthly rhythm of conducting the whole orchestra, of kind of standing up, being like, okay, I am the conductor, and so I'm going to conduct, but only once a month. You're not going to find me conducting the rest of the month. I am making the videos that I want to make,
Yeah.
but once a month, I will conduct an orchestra and then send you all out to go conduct your own orchestras.
Yeah.
If you find this song helpful and beneficial for this month, let's see what kind of raucous concert we can put on that the world will hear across this whole flotilla, and see some lights coming on in the darkness of this river of exile, and go, what in the world are they doing over there? Because I'm gonna find whatever floats. I'm gonna find any paddle I could find, and I'm gonna make it to that flotilla, because I can hear that noise, and that noise is beautiful. And I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna follow it. And then you get in the flotilla, and you go, so there's a bunch of Christians, and there's some people who say they're not a Christian, but their life kind of matches the shape of the Bible. And there's some people who are atheists, and there's occasionally a Muslim. There's a few Jews that are kind of everywhere. And then there's this and there's that and there's this and there's that. And okay, so this is not a church. And some people are saying they're trying to start a cult, but they kind of seem like they're friends, like in real life, even though they're not really. I don't ever see two of them in the same place. Can you hear me still? My thing froze.
Yeah, yeah, your thing froze. I can still hear you. You'll unfreeze. That's sort of been the pattern.
Oh, okay. Or my phone died.
No, I still hear you. So your phone's still alive. Um,
Yeah, it's like I guess that's the metaphor that I'm operating. I'm doubling down on the flotilla metaphor,
yeah.
and because that's what happened to me, was that I stumbled into the flotilla. I went, oh, there's a lot of beauty here, and then I
Yeah.
went, okay, this is not a church. This is not, and it's not supposed to be a church. I don't think that doesn't feel right to me,
Yeah.
and I would probably get a little weirded out if it was becoming a church.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
But
I'll think about it. I'll think about it. I'm not sure. So let me give you so recently so my friend Ron, I had my friend Ron on a live stream the other day, and I bump into this when I have to sort of explain what's happening around me to normies. That's a really challenging thing. And so then I made because I'd like so there's a lot of anxiety around, well, how can you might want to turn your camera off and on again. That might get you unfroze because you've got kind of a funny look on your frozen face here. So People will Grim Grizz will make a meme out of that, and Chad will make a branding out of that, and you'll be memorialized in this way. But okay, you're unfroze. Um, recently, I so part of the question is, okay, what exactly is happening here, and how and so I recently did a Randos conversation with someone. It wasn't recorded at all, and it's I regularly have this experience because often the people who they might not even be signed into YouTube because they don't want, Google, so on and so forth. They have never left a comment. They have never contacted me in any way, shape, or form. And then they get to a point for whatever reason where they think they might want to talk to me. And so, they grab our randos or they send me an email or they DM me or something like this. And I say, yeah, let's talk. And, then they say basically, I know I can't listen to every video. Completely understand. And maybe I haven't listened to one for 6 months. Totally understand. But, kind of keep doing what you're doing because you're helping me. Okay, fair enough. And then I look at someone like my friend and it's like, okay, if you sort of heard rumors of what's going on here and you want to know. All right. One of the, I think, and your story has demonstrated this, participation is really key here. If you're just watching, um, you're really missing out. And that's taken nothing away from the people who are just watching because I totally get it. Most of the people who are just watching, they've got jobs, they've got kids, they've got, relationships, and all they can do is watch, and they've got good reasons to never interact. Fine. But jump in a live stream, get talking to people, do what you've been doing because it's only sort of in participating that you're really going to sort of understand what this can do for you. And it's also the case that some people participate for a season and then they drop out. And that's totally fine because that has to do with their life. And part of what's so annoying about churches, especially certain kinds of churches, is that they just keep demanding more from people. Oh, you came to visit our church. Well, thank you for coming. Please come again. Then you come again. Pretty soon you're coming every week. They're like, okay, now you're coming every week. Now we want you to take on this volunteer ministry. Now we want you to serve in this office. Now we want you to, and it's like the church just keeps pulling, and it's like, oh, now wait a minute. They've got a family. They've got all kinds of demands in their life. And I really understand how church is important. I think this is actually one of the things that some of the older sacramental churches are doing because they're a little less mechanistic than Protestant churches. But part of so I've got 30, 33,000, 32,000 subscribers to my channel, something like that. That number is virtually meaningless. It really is. What that means is that 32,000 or some people at some point in time hit the little subscribe button. A certain percentage of people care about how many channels they're subscribed to and they hit unsubscribe. That's not me. I'm like subscribed to like 1,500 channels or something. It's something stupid crazy. Um, at any given time, the number of people who are actually sort of participating in this space, it's not 33,000 people. And it's really hard to know just how many people. And part of the truth of that big number is that 30 some thousand people saw something once, thought they might like to come back at some point, and the vast majority of them have not been back. And so while even for friends of mine for whom I think, boy, this would probably be really good for you, I can't get them in. I can't get them in. And they're friends of mine. They know me. They love me. They care about me. I can't get them in. This is a really weird space. And I I very much understand about the ticket at one thing towards order. One of the things I did recently was because I was trying to encourage some friends of mine to jump into a live stream. I actually went through and I was celebrated by both Jacob and Mark. Thought this was good, but of course, entirely too late. I should have done this, blah, 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 blah. They've got their whole list of things I should have done differently, which is fine. Um, I made a list of links to channels that semi-reliably host open streams that you can come onto and make friends. You know, you have the House of Woo, you've got Chris Howard in the morning, you've got Chad. Now Luke is back from Len. Jacob is a very reliable place that you can often get in on, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I started making that list and I bumped into questions like, okay, Jacob says he's not part of the corner. Should I put him on the list?
Hmm.
Because Jacob's corner is not just Jacob. It's Donnie, it's Hezi, it's Dave Busatil's little Bible study. It's, you know, all the, you know, and Jacob sometimes, I mean, Jacob's an insurance broker and he's got busy times of year and not busy times of year. And when he's not busy, he tends to live stream a lot so you can get on. And Matt C perfectly narrated it. You know, you first come on Jacob's stream and then it's like, oh, these are friendly people. This is lovely. And then Jacob just goes on a tear about telling you what a horrible heretic you are and how you're an idolater and all of this. And well, for me, that doesn't bother me. A certain number of people start listening to Jacob talk, and it's like, you know, what's happening? And so then it's like, do I include Jacob in that list or not? And then Mark Lefevre. Mark Lefevre streams usually Friday afternoons. Mark can have some hospitality. Um, you know, Mark's a good guy. Mark's a smart guy. I like Mark. I've spent time with Mark in person. Mark has a long list of things I'm doing wrong, and Mark will just simply say it in very blunt ways, which is fine. Do I put Mark on that? Because I think if someone's first, I hope you understand where I'm going with this, because suddenly when you start taking this rather insider thing and asking the question, the seeker question, how do we make this a little bit more approachable? How do we make the corner seeker sensitive?
Well, and so this is why I'm trying to delineate the corner, and I'm defining the corner as the extension of Paul Vanderklay's authority, which might be an unfair definition, from the flotilla. Because the way I see the flotilla is maybe the flotilla is currently 70% is the TLC, but Jacob also has a flotilla and there's an overlap there. And if Jacob says, I'm not TLC, but then Jacob says, I am on the flotilla, and Jacob tells me that the flotilla comes from, it's a Grim Grizz meme. But then I read this 2011 blog about classes, which is actually about a flotilla. And it's also like, okay, so you had some authority, but you also like actively given authority away and have said, you go build this. You go find some rafts to lash on to you. And I would assume that, tell me if I'm wrong here, that part of your dream for whatever this thing is becoming, whatever direction it is moving in, is that as the flotilla grows, your authority would not be 70% of the flotilla, that you would still be lashed up to this flotilla, but there would be other people that have people lashing up to them,
and it becomes this large network of interconnected nodes, but that you are not the central node of the whole network.
So you'll hear Jacob and Mark talk about the Peterson sphere.
Yeah.
And part of the reason they talk about that is because in a lot of ways, the channels that are sort of downstream from me to a degree are sort of within the Peterson sphere too. So you can sort of take this thing and one level up it. And how are we connected with the Vervaeke Foundation and with the symbolic world?
Yep.
Um, And then, let's leave Jacob aside because Jacob gets annoyed when we talk about him instead of talking to him. And let's talk about Grail Country because they're a little less sensitive. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I
Um,
bring up Jacob because I talked to him this past week.
right,
That's
right, right. I get that. I get that.
yeah.
And Jacob's fine. He's a big boy. I mean, Jacob and I Jacob can call me an idolater. He can call, I mean, Jacob's got a whole list of names he calls me. You should go back and find some of those Paul's fired videos. They're really quite something. And every now and then I jump on and we sort of have a hash it out together. Um, but you look at something like Grail Country or Karen Wong's The Meaning Code, because Karen was an early adopter here. Karen found me early, and Karen wanted to do some things. And imitation is, the sincerest form of flattery. And that's exactly what Karen did. But she said, I can't talk into a camera. And then she also noticed that she couldn't necessarily get the kind of people to talk to her like she wanted to. So then she figured out how she could broker things. So she figured that John Vervaeke and Michael Levin might want to talk together. So she'd get both of them in and bring them down. So, but yeah, Karen's doing something. Karen's channel is like mine in that Karen's got her own interests and she's pursuing them, and they don't always necessarily go like this. And almost every channel is like that in the flotilla. So, for Transfigured, Sam's channel, which is another older channel and a more successful channel. I mean, Sam, of course, has his whole, he isn't necessarily trying to necessarily spread the gospel of Unitarianism, but he just wants to make it so that Unitarians aren't, um, excommunicated from Trinitarian churches as much as he has been. So, yeah, I'll say this. Usually, when I can get an idea about how something could be better for the movement, I'll usually try it. Now, part of my challenge with schedule is that the TLC is actually a notch down on my schedule from other things, which is
That's
why I haven't, really fixed a lot of things. I'm kind of doing a Friday, live stream, but that's even depending on what my church schedule looks like. So,
and
yeah,
maybe
I don't
it has
know.
more to do with you intentionally using your authority and saying, hey, you over here take oral authority and we need a scribe. So I think you could be a scribe.
Yep.
Maybe it has more to do with assigning roles and functions to individuals that haven't found their roles and functions yet.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
saying, hey, I see you. I know what you're doing. I can see what you could be capable of. Why don't you try doing this? One thing we don't have is there's not a meta schedule of the flotilla where someone can go up and say, every Monday I stream.
Yeah.
You could go to one place. You could see.
I'd love that that to happen. And actually, I started this little Google Calendar and I tried to encourage people to sort of sign into that when they were going to live stream because it would really be nice. And a number of other people have said similar things to me that, the schedule, the corner could be facilitated with a little bit more structure.
With
That if we, in fact, if we had for a while, I looked at starting a wiki actually for the corner, which I think is something that would really help it. And so I looked at Fandom, which is kind of a wiki, and then I actually bought some web space for one, and then but I've also been running this thing like this for a while, and you'll hear some of the biggest criticism of me from some of what happened with Bridges of Meaning Discord. But because you'll hear Joey mentioned and Rick, so Rick was baptized, Rick's here at Living Stones. But I also have a lot of experience working with volunteers. And you know what? Volunteers are volunteers. And this is something that, a lot of evangelical churches have worked through because that, that, that level up to paying someone to do something, that's a really important shift. And so a big part of what the conversation has been, should we start a TLC not for profit that can house some of this? And should we have a board? And I'm not saying that that can never happen. I'm not saying it should never happen. But number one, I have to always think about my capacity to serve on something like that in terms of my current bandwidth and responsibilities. And, for example, Jacob was really upset when, so estuary movement is something that I've obviously been deeply participated in and led and founded and all of that stuff. But I outsourced most of that to John Van Donk. And I did that intentionally. And so then when estuary actually has a 501c3 and they have a board, they have a leadership team and they meet regularly, and I'm not on it by design, and then they named Nate Heil to sort of be the liaison. I mean, when that structure developed, it was very interesting to watch because, and I knew this would happen. Once you have an inside and an outside, especially with something like this, you're making choices. And it's ironic that a lot of the people who have been making the most noise about organization would probably be on the outs of a bunch of things that would hurt for them. And, but that's what you do when you transition from just a network of volunteers to something that has a little bit more coercion and decision when you say, I'm picking this person and not that person. And while I can maybe say a whole bunch of reasons for this, I may be right, I may be wrong. That, of course, is what goes with leadership, is that your call, your consequence. So
I've done both sides of that.
yeah, yeah. And so at some point, I think the corner would benefit from some of those things. But my take has always been so far, partly because of my commitments at Living Stones, that um, I can't commit to something in the corner that's going to, my first commitment is to Living Stones. And of course, I've got commitments to my family too, but my first commitment is to Living Stones. If Living Stones goes away, that might change. If Living Stones went away, then I very well might establish something with a structure and with a tax designation and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But even now, like I derived more income from Patreon. I don't push the Patreon much. I've sort of let that lag, but I've kept it around. And then YouTube membership. And I derived more income last year than I thought I would, which meant I got zonked with taxes this year, which is just the way it goes. Um, and and then I looked at, I actually talked to some other YouTubers and said, I could start an S corp, and I looked at some of those structures. So, but right now, my channel is about at a size where I could like, there's a whole variety of things that I could do to structure this differently. And the channel's just kind of at a certain size where it's sort of it's not clear that you should do one thing and not the other. If things got to a certain size, um, for example, if I went from 30 to 100,000 subs and my videos went from between 2 to 5,000 views to 20 to 50,000 views, I would think a lot more seriously about that. But then I could also sort of say to Living Stones, okay, um, this is I'm going to continue to be the senior pastor because I've also got Living Stones is also going to have to deal with my retirement, which I am going to do. Whereas to just leave them for the TLC right now, I can't fit that within my conscience. But once I retire, things are going to be different. And so, if a degree of income was coming from YouTube that I could say to Living Stones, you're relieved of my salary, use that salary, use that money to hire, let's say, a part-time or a young pastor or someone who can sort of, I can sort of hand this off to a protege. I could do something like that. There's a whole bunch of things, but and I think about that sometimes because I know that if I managed my channel differently, I could grow it more. I know that. And I know some of the ways that I could use to grow it more.
Well, that's not what I'm getting at.
No, I know. But in other words, having more structure could be facilitated if certain aspects were different. But I'd also need to be sure that that would actually be healthy for the current dynamics we're experiencing, because there is something really beautiful about the fact that this is, for the most part, unscripted.
I mean, yes. I also go like when I read in 2011 from you, I'm going, oh, he followed the script. but I'm also thinking, this is why I think metamodernism is happening. I saw a video where I know that you watched Asteroid City.
Yep.
I don't know how much you remember it. Like
yep.
the spoiler, the climactic scene is
yep.
the character walks from the in color world into the mountain where there's a door, and then goes to the director and goes, I don't think I'm doing this right. Like, I don't know, like this script isn't, he goes, I can't remember what he says, but it's like, just read the script, just follow the script, trust the script, which is trust the author, which is the whole authority issue. Is when you say there is no God and we have killed him, then you're going, there is no author, there is no script. And when I go like, well, okay, right now I'm on Paul Vanderklay's channel, which means what I need to do is submit myself to the author of the channel, which is like, this is Paul's channel. He has authority here. And that authority does extend into, and that's like oral authority, I think that's fair to say, into this sphere of authority. And there's something about following Jesus and being a little Christ and being on the path where you, like, I'm trying to be the kind of person that brings the will of God, the authority of God. And because heaven and earth meets in me and I am a temple, my body's a temple, and I have the ability to like extend the will of God into a zone around me. And there's something like when I sin, when I turn my face from God, God can't be with sin. So then that zone has to like shrink and just become, I don't know, maybe become potential. And so I have to confess my sin and go, I'm moving in the wrong direction. And then that potential can like zoom up again and extend. And like, that's always, like, God is always present with us. And, but you have to, I don't know. And so this last Friday was the first Friday where I didn't go to, like, because normally Grim does a stream that leads into Friday Estuary. And I didn't do any of that for the first time since being with TLC, because I found Rigel Windsong Thurman.
Yep.
I clicked on his stream and Sherry was in there. I went, oh, there's a stream with only 2 people on it.
Yeah.
I want to talk to Sherry more because Chad invited me to an estuary, and I met Sherry there.
Yeah.
And Rigel, I don't know, found me on Twitter, and so I talked to him a little bit there.
Yeah.
I jump in with them, and Rigel goes, "Do you have anything to share?" I go, "Huh? Do you have anything bubbling up inside of you? Did you bring an art piece?" I go, what are we talking about? He goes, "Well, that's what we do here. We share." I go, "Well, I mean, I have like poems on my phone. Sure, I can share something. Sure." I go, Have you done an open mic, like a flotilla wide open mic?" He goes, "Oh, that's a great idea." I go, "Like you could do a flotilla wide open mic if you set a date in advance, 3 months away. You could do it seasonally. You could do a summer open mic, winter open mic, and you could have people from all across this flotilla come together, give them a 10-minute slot. They could perform something. They could stay on. They could leave. You just need a host. But that'd be a really cool meta stream where you're bringing people from across the flotilla to one place. And then it becomes this exciting thing that everybody wants to see because it's people from all over the flotilla. And then people go, "Hey, your buddy at work, you want to show your buddy at work the stream because you came on and you read a poem and your mom wants to see it." And then it becomes something that people from the banks go, "Oh, wow, I hear some beautiful music over there." And so there is this like meta-ness. And then I think for me, coming from megachurch land, I'm like, the amount that can get done when volunteers know what their role is, are committed to their role, and go, "I'm going to run the smoke machine, and I'm going to run the smoke machine well, and it's important and it contributes. And I look forward every week to running the smoke machine. This is how I serve God." I go, volunteers in a decentralized, centralized thing can get enormous amounts done. Yeah, there's danger, but there's danger to everything. And then I think about Jordan Peterson, and this is a slight deviation. And I don't know how long yet. We can end whenever, just pull the rug. By listening to him on Rogan, and I hear him talking about Eve clutching a serpent to her breast, and I'm going, where's this coming from? And then I'm chasing it down, and then I see on Discord, on the Bridges of Meaning, that someone else is going, where is this coming from? And nobody seems to be able to figure out where it comes from. But the guess is the Pajot brothers. And I don't mean this as an attack at all. I'm just going like, I'm wondering if symbolism is going to be stretched too far. And my guess is enlightenment elevated reason above all else. And then symbolism happened. People went, "Oh, I need some of that," because there's been none of that. And so then symbolism's up. And now symbolism is being elevated above all else. And there will be people who will use that elevation and rush to it and use the power of symbolism, well, to get more power. That's what you do with power, you get more of it. And to go, okay, well, I am concerned that if you elevate symbolism above all else, you're still going to end up in nihilism over there. I don't think it's a way out of nihilism. I think it's, I guess my theory is that it's more so like right-wing postmodernism, or it's postmodernism dressed in the language of modernism. And I go, I used to be in nihilism. That was my life. And I stumbled out of it by the grace of God. And I'm like, how do I don't know, like, life is worth living. How do I communicate that life is worth living? And what precisely happened to me? What did God do inside of me? And how did I get here? What feels like the other side of nihilism? And again, it's only been 3 months. So I don't know. 3 months later, 4 months later, I could go, I'm just as depressed as I ever was. And I'm actually not on the other banks of nihilism like I thought. Time will tell that story. But I am currently convinced that I went through nihilism and came out the other side, that I experienced death and resurrection. And I'm like how, well, that's my task of writing, but.
I like I've done similar things on some of my Friday things I've done like quickie randos, and I brought people through. I like the open mic idea. It would be super fun. For a while they did once we did sort of someone did like the 24-hour stream, I thought that was a cool idea. They kept a stream going for 24 hours. It would be fun to do sort of a 24-hour distributed stream through
Yeah.
the different channels so that different channels could have their, and it would be so interesting is that some channels would definitely exclude themselves because there's, I'm not TLC, I'm not going to be part of that. It's like, okay. And then they'd have their stream on the other side, which is fine.
You could do a sign up for a stream, and the stream will go if there's 48 streams that say I want an hour, then it's a 48-hour stream.
Yeah.
It's like, how
No,
do you bring creativity to the flotilla, distribute it across,
Yeah.
and bring in some of the meta stuff? Because to me, I go like, I don't think that's taking TLC to the next level. I think it is, but I think it's also maintaining what is happening and not. I hope it's not imposing anything.
right.
And if it's an imposition, I'll be happy to drop it and never bring it up ever again.
I think it's a good question to ask. So, with my preaching, some people watch, well, what do you talk about during the week? And then what do you talk about in your sermon? And some people are happy that there's crossover between them, and some people are horrified that there's crossover between them. But, part of what, when I was working towards Palm Sunday this year, one of the aha moments I had was thinking about how low resolution our imaginations are in comparison to the real world. So people, even with the road to Emmaus, the two guys on the road to Emmaus said, we thought Jesus was going to redeem Israel. And it'd be fun to just sort of pause them and say, please tell me in concrete terms what exactly you mean by redeem Israel. Because both that word redeem, which is in Greek, it's basically to set free. So was that, and then Israel. Boy, right now in New Testament studies, the question of what on earth do we mean by Israel? Those two words, just put them next to each other. You could, go on forever about both of them. But, taking TLC to the next level. Okay, what do we mean by that? What does that look like? And I think in many ways, what that's looked like to me has tended to be more estuary groups. Because again, one level is virtually not alone, and then we take a step out and we're physically not alone. So there's a level.
You need to get spit into the real world.
Right. And the conferences are that. And so, they've sold not quite 100 tickets to Midwestuary. And these guys planning Midwestuary, and again, it's not me planning it. And again, for me, part of the reason I believe in sort of distributed leadership is when I look at what Nate Heil did with Northwestuary, he did some things I never would have thought of. It was amazing. That was amazing. And Chad came to me a while ago and said, I want to do a conference. And I said, you go talk to Sam and Hank and Mo and the Chicago group and get connected with them because Wisconsin, Chicago, not too far away. And they're really, they're looking at, they've got a lot of horsepower coming up on that stage. And when they talked to me, I said, on one hand, it's super exciting having all that horsepower on stage. On another hand, boy, so Rick's father, who passed away last year, his father was like a lot of he liked playing with cars. He was an auto painter, he used to paint cars. He built like his dream 56 Chevy. And so he had this 56 Chevy body. He put like a Corvette engine in it. And so then when he passed away, Rick and his brother had to do something with this car, and they tried to drive it. But the truth is, what was the perfect car in their father's imagination? You got a Corvette engine, you've got this and you got that, you got this. None of those pieces actually work together well. The car was undrivable because you can't have that much horsepower with those tires and those brakes and that differential and that transmission. And, so it became kind of a Frankenstein. And so when I looked at how much horsepower they're putting on stage there, it's sort of like the dream, this is like the dream conference. We're going to get Viveki and Peugeot and Elizabeth Oldfield and Rod Dreher, and going to put them on stage. And part of me's looking like that. So that could become a Frankenstein fast, because you have to think about, you say, what if I was twice as smart? Would you want a head twice as big? How would that work in terms of your body? And so, so, and again, for me, that's part of my principle about organic growth. That, because I've seen in so many churches that we want to bring this church from nothing to 10,000 people in 10 years. And I look at that and part of me says, you might well be building Frankenstein, because what happens in a body is that the engine can't be overpowered from the brakes or the tires, because for the whole thing to work, you actually need all of the elements to work together. And so I don't know. So, and for me, in terms of my leadership and the things that I do, I mostly do a lot of listening and watching. And then I either try something or I watch someone that someone else has tried. I think Jacob's jump into StreamYard was a great example of that. Because I give all the credit to Jacob for that. Because what was happening was that in the Discord servers, at Bridges of Meaning, and then in some of the other ones, but especially in Bridges of Meaning, we were having incredible times together. Like one of the things that I did was I decided to do open camera. So people would be, maybe there were tradespeople. You see Chad doing this on his channel sometime when he's tiling, to just make us virtually not alone at work. Now, it was difficult for me because of sort of, I have a little bit more elevation and status. I'm a little harder to find and talk to. So then people would come in and like, I can get all of Paul's attention right now. I don't have to wait to get a rando slot, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, well, then I couldn't get my work done. So, and so part of this is sort of organic growth as it goes. I look at someone like Seabax, who hasn't put out a video for a little while. And so I sent him a little note. It says, just want to make sure you're okay, because
He's on he's helping his church get a building and get it running and going, and
exactly,
it was going awesome.
which is exactly right. So, but I also know that for people, their TLC thing has to fit properly, organically in the rest of their life. So I'm also very sensitive to that. So no, I completely agree with you. I also, and again, there's plenty of criticisms that are many of the criticisms that I've heard, I listen to and I think, yep, that's very valid. That's a shortcoming in my part. I know a fair amount of my issues with success and money. I'm fairly allergic to that. Um, and yeah, maybe that's because of my parents and my upbringing, and that's all fine. I'll own my own weaknesses. And I do believe that I will, on Judgment Day, I will be called to account, not just for all these other areas of my life, but for my leadership in this particular realm of the world. And so I do take that seriously too. But I am not going to grow a thing just to be able to say that I grew a big thing. And the kind of fruit that I measure things by tend to be, I've already sort of laid out that matrix. Are we having honest conversation on the internet with appropriate transparency? Are friendships developing? Are people finding healing and sort of a place, fertile soil through which they can grow? And I don't exactly know what they need to grow. Do they need to grow a family? Do they need to grow a career? Do they need to make some progress in terms of who they are? And I look around the corner And some of these people I had my randos with years ago. Just look at Sherry. I mean, if you can dig up, they're kind of hard to find often. If you can dig up, if someone wants to do something, they should just kind of,
I have two of her videos pulled up. I haven't watched them yet, but I think it's the first two videos.
yeah. You look at someone like Sherry, and I didn't know her before the corner, obviously, but my impression of her in the corner is that she has flourished and she has authority and she has presence. And, and she used to get annoyed by it, but because I would call her like the mother of the Discord, and her sister, who sounds exactly like her, was so funny. Her sister drew her up on there, said, Sherry, why don't you own this? Because of what you have are all of these people who come to you and say, we love you, we respect you, we listen to you, you're a leader of us, and when you speak, we listen. And I look at what Nate has done in Grail Country. I look at what Jacob's done in Jacob's Corner. That's what I call it. I look at what Mark is continuing to do. My metric to people, which is do do what you think you want and you should do, whether or not anybody watches. Not a lot of people watch Navigating Patterns, their live stream. I get it. I usually check in and maybe we'll leave a trollish comment or just an encouraging comment or something like that. People who know me know that if I'm trolling on your channel, it means that I like you enough to troll. So I look at that and I think, yeah. Now, then if someone would say, okay, what is the next level? I could say, well, that more people find this and are blessed by it. Yes. The conferences and estuary in real life, face-to-face relationships. Yeah, that's a next level. Um, and could the corner be blessed by some more structure? Yes. But I think about, okay, what would this structure cost? And I don't just mean money, because even just the additional structuring that estuary, just as one little element of the corner, estuary did, it was so interesting watching. It's been so interesting watching that happen, because I just had a conversation with Jonathan Donk by phone last week about some of these things. And what's really interesting about the corner is that there are unseen leaders in the corner who are doing things in the background, who are paying for things, who are cheerleading, who are making connections. So there's sort of invisible host of witnesses out there that are also working that most people can't see, because many of these people, for various reasons, don't want to, you know, it's they've got good reasons to not be visible in certain ways. So, but I guess, and I'm really encouraged by you being here, because one of the ways that I know the corner needs to grow, when I think about next level of the corner, I actually think about writing, because writing, the relationship between video and writing is an interesting one. I think we by no means know even a lot of what that relationship is now that we have video. So the oral, but the recorded oral, the always accessible oral versus written, because written as for as long time been sort of an always accessible sort of oral. And so, I was really happy when you came in, and it's like, okay, you're a writer and you're doing a Substack, and various people have played with that so far in the corner. I mean, we had a Writers of Meaning, Discord, sub-Discord of Bridges of Meaning, that you can find some of those people around. But um, I don't really, we haven't really seen anything sort of get to a level by which it sort of becomes, I don't know, a something more than what we've managed to be able to do so far. So, because part of what's this particular element of YouTube and recorded oral and live streams hits a very selective audience. But a lot of my audience is actually much more in the written world. And they listen to 1 or 2 videos a month, or maybe 4 or 5 videos a month. But if we had more written, they would benefit from that. But another thing that I'm thinking about is that Substack is like Substack has huge scalability issues. And I don't know that the Substack people have really thought that through yet. And so there's just a whole bunch of random thoughts. So, and we should land this at the half hour because I should really do something.
Yeah.
But this has been awesome. And I mean, some people are going to recognize that between my conversation with Ray, now my conversation with you, I know we're getting much more into the Joe Rogan space. We used to start at an hour, and now I've been doing 2 hours, and now we're blowing past 2 hours, which I think is great.
Did you post Ray this morning?
Yeah.
Okay, so I watched the clip of that. I'm excited to.
Oh,
Right.
what a conversation.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to watch that. So well, maybe I'll just end by I'll tell you exactly what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, I'm a writer. I've always been a writer. So written is, well, no. Donald Miller said, you cannot tell a good story until you've lived a good story. So I view my life as writing a story. So when I hang out with the Jews and they go, yeah, the living Torah, I go, yeah, no, yeah. Because the Bible is a story that I enter into, and I find my role amongst this. It's still ongoing. Or like Revelation, the end of Revelation hasn't happened. I don't think it's happening anytime soon. I don't think I think Jordan Hall is probably right about an apocalypse. I don't think that is the end of all apocalypses. I do think there's an apocalypse coming though. So like I view my life as the first telling of the story, and then I view that I'm writing and I'm trying to capture the experience of my life via the written word. So I'm doing that on Substack, but I'm not viewing my Substack as a blog. I've played with blogging. I'm sure I have a blog, an old blog from when I was religious the first time around. So I don't feel I'm doing this blogging. I'm trying to write a book by living the book and then telling the book. I guess on Substack I'm trying to write a few books, to be honest, because I have a few series that I'm working through. So one is poems that are written, and then one is I got really interested, and this just kind of happened recently. I had a picture in my water bottle of this, which is the Great Seal of America. And I was like, what is this? I went looking for it, I found it. And then I found a sketch of the Seal of America, which has like some countries in there. Then it has a bunch of interesting symbols. One of which is the, I believe it's Columbia. And boy, is that a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Yeah.
That Columbia rabbit hole, from the way I see it, takes me directly to Michael Heiser's Divine Counsel, which I wanted to explore through that.
Yeah.
I will get there through this America stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'm working on a series. I want to exegete the whole Bible, which is insane. But I want to just. So I'm not. I mean, yeah, I've written one post there, so that is very, very slow. But like I know the second post I want to talk about. I want to bring in some Marshall McLuhan and talk about the technology of scrolls and how a scroll is different from a codex. But so before I even get to Genesis 1, I'm trying to approach the Bible from a higher. And so a lot of that is I'm trying to bring in Tim Mackey and the Bible Project. There's a whole host of online, basically just free college.
Yeah.
Trying to bring their work and mold that with some of the college I have, life experience, yada, yada. So I have a Bible thing, I have an America thing, I have a poetry thing. And then I'm also working on this thing in the background, which hasn't come to Substack yet, which is about modernism, postmodernism, metamodernism, all of that. It's also about like the history of ideas. And then I also started a mini series, which would be like 55 parts on ARC, where I'm going to watch every video they post and respond to it.
Yeah.
I'm like, Keith, you're never going to get any of this done.
Yeah.
Unless it's all one thing and it's all going to be one book. I'm not sure about that. And then I started a game show because I wanted to play in the corner.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put this meta stuff into practice and be like, what if I collected questions from people all across the flotilla? Those would be some good questions. And if I just asked a stranger, and then that could be an interesting application. But then I went, okay, but the only reason anyone has read my Substack is because one day Paul Vanderklay took a clip of me. And so the only reason that I have any attention on me whatsoever is the spotlight you put on me, where you threw me to the wolves. And then I just recently watched the movie Rudy, where a little hobbit is just trying to join a football team. And this hobbit just keeps getting hit. And he stands up and goes, I'll take another one, please. And he doesn't even want to, he's never even going to play in the match. He's just trying to be on the team. And I went, oh, this is what I'm doing right now on the internet. I'm Rudy. I'm just taking hits. And I'll take another one, Grim. Please take another one, Grim. I shall present myself for public shaming because I do deserve it. And I'll take another one, sir. And so I go, okay, well, I need to turn this written thing into film. So then I'm taking what I've written on Substack, and now I've had the beginnings of a YouTube channel. But when I go to film them, I can't just read them. I'm like, because this isn't right anymore. I have to recapture the form. So I wrote a Substack about my grok conversation. But when I went to film it, I had an idea that came from somewhere. I went, oh, I need to follow this idea. And the idea started with a 20-minute prelude of me appearing on different channels. And so at this point, yeah, it's the Substack, but you get 20 minutes of content that I pulled that is not going to appear on the Substack. So the YouTube is a different thing, but the writing is more foundational.
Yeah.
I'm hoping by the end of this week that my YouTube will be caught up with the Substack so I can go back to writing, because I'm really missing writing. But that also means that I'm going to have to pull back from appearing on live streams, because I'm putting myself sucked into the internet. And I'm in Anchorage, Alaska, and I need to go to the mountains.
Yes. Yeah. That the internet is, it'll suck you in. And you, for your story too, that it's not that video games and TV are worthless. It's just these are powers that we have to figure out how to engage with for blessing.
I stopped playing video games.
Yeah.
I more or less, I've played maybe an hour every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Because the Holy Spirit gives me quests.
Yep. No, that's good. That's awesome. I can't wait to see what you produce. This is really
I can't wait
exciting.
to see what you produce.
Yeah, well, I will produce something. That's quite true. And thanks for digging up the classist stuff. I know I wrote a ton of stuff like that. I was really trying to help my classes and other classes in the CRC. That was long before the YouTube thing. That was, I'd have a few hundred people in the CRC reading my blog every now and then. But yeah, the CRC's got its own trials. But anyway.
Don't we all?
Thank you for this time.
Thank you.
And really looking forward to seeing when I put this video out, what comes of it. I actually have a video that is recorded. I don't know, I'll either release it tomorrow or today, this afternoon, or tomorrow morning for homeroom, that I recorded last Friday about authority and about the pass-through nature of authority, which I think very much, when we were talking about authority, I was very much connecting that with this. Because the authority works because it's not actually my authority. It's authority from above me that is passing through me. That's how authority works.
Yeah.
And so yeah. Anyway, Ethan, this has been great.
Cheers.
I will see you. And if I don't see you a lot, I'll know that you're working on other stuff. So
this is true.
Awesome. Take care, man.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.